Labor's International Union Vice President. I'm also the business manager of Laborers Local 332. I'm here to tell you why it's important for you to vote. Why? Because your vote puts protection on your prevailing wages. Why? Because your vote put protection on your health and welfare. Why? Because your vote put protection on your pension. Why? Because your vote put protection on your right to join a union and organize. Remember this, you are free to choose, but you are not free from your consequences of your choice. Please vote so that the great work of this great international union can continue to grow for generations to come. Thank you.
Don't forget to tune into Labor's Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. on WURD, WURD.
Hi, I'm Tobias Harris. We've been hashtagging and protesting, but this November, we can show the system what time it is. We've been victims of police brutality, stop and frisk, and other forms of harassment. On November 3rd, we take our power back. This year, everything changes. We can vote to end stop and frisk and put police accountability in the hands of the people. It's on us. On November 3rd, vote to make our communities safer and our systems fairer.
Paid for by Black Vote PA, which is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.theelectionisnow.com.
WURD Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the up-and-coming election. Still concerned about COVID-19 and voting in person? Pennsylvania has you covered with mail-in ballots. Simply submit a completed ballot by mail. So long as you request that mail-in ballot between now and October 27th, go to votespa.com and apply for your mail-in ballot today. When your ballot arrives, read it carefully and follow the instructions to complete it and return it. You can also track and confirm that your County Board of Elections has received the mail-in ballot by going to votespa.com. For more information on how to vote in Pennsylvania, visit states.aarp.org/Pennsylvania. Vote early. WURD Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the up-and-coming election. Stay informed and vote. For more from Charles Ellison, tune in Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or visit wordradio.com.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, listeners, and hosts of any program on WURD Radio do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, management, or advertisers of this station.
Okay, everyone, welcome to Reality Check. It is the midweek, midday edition of Reality Check here on the home of Black Talk Media, WURD. I'm Charles Ellison. I'm your host, executive producer, also creator of Reality Check. Today and every Monday through Thursday here on WURD. We are on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, WURD TV, also WURD app as well. You can catch us on Facebook.com/4WURD, YouTube.com/onWURD for our WURD TV live stream. Also, you can leave comments in both the YouTube and Facebook comment sections as you're watching our live stream today and every day. Hashtag WURD on politics. Also, let's gear up for our special election coverage. We will be having special election coverage here on WURD. Those will be announced soon. So just keep an eye open for that, keep an ear open for that here on WURD and also at hashtag WURD on politics. I'm on twitter.com, by the way, for social media. I'm at Ellison Report. Many of you do follow me there at Ellison Report on twitter.com, hashtag reality check and hashtag WURD on politics as well. It is the top of the midday Wednesday midweek edition of Reality Check. We're just going to open up the phone lines. We're going to have the phone lines. We just went ahead and made the phone. We had a very busy program lined up for you today. We actually have a very busy program lined up this week. Of course, obviously, it's going to be busy because we've got a major week that we're in the midst of as the country still is on the cliff, on the precipice, and we have a major election that's now less than a week away. But we just want to make space for everyone to gather their thoughts, to offer their thoughts and perspectives on what is happening in Philadelphia right now, and also not just what's happening in Philadelphia, but what's rippling across the nation. So we want to capture your voice here on Reality Check, that first hour. So 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. We went ahead and cleared things up a bit here in this 10 o'clock hour to make some space for you. 215-634-8065, toll free, it is 866-361-0900. There's a lot that's going on, a lot to talk about. We've got this, still people trying to unpack and trying to make sense of what is widely viewed as an unnecessary and senseless killing of Walter Wallace Jr. in West Philly on Monday. And obviously there's a lot of outrage that has been spilling all throughout Philly. And we saw a lot much more. We see the crux of, or the majority of reaction to that killing has been peaceful protest. However, we did encounter another night of clashes between police, also demonstrators, and also a few bad actors out there who were taking advantage of the situation to do whatever they want. But we had reports of scattered incidents and clashes happening throughout not just West Philly, but also North Philly as well, Kensington, Port Richmond, and other areas. Videos of also some looting that's taking place. I hope folks who are listening in on this program are not doing that, or not engaged in that type of behavior. Peaceful protest, that's fine, definitely peaceful protest, and also figure out other creative, constructive, and more effective ways to channel that energy. Like any kind of inclination to loot or engaging any kind of anarchy, that's just not going to work. So you're not going to be able to get your point across, and that's not going to help anybody. Least of all, the family of Walter Wallace, but and least of all the city of Philadelphia, and least of all the conditions that you're in. So people are going to have to be strategic about this, and I understand, definitely, there's a lot of pent up angst out there, but folks are going to have to figure out. I'm not going to say calm down. Like, definitely, we're going to be angry, and anger is a good thing as long as it's channeled. It's channeled like strategically and correctly and effectively, and you are applying that anger in a way that hits at the right pressure points, and there are ways to do that. So it's always saddening and unfortunate to see that kind of unrest. But for the most part, the reaction or the response to that killing has been peaceful protests, and people, thoughtful people out there looking for thoughtful ways to, really make some change and to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again. Even though, every time we go through it, we hope that it never happens again, and it just seems to happen. It's just a constant washing cycle of the same thing. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are wide open at 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900. Also want to go over early voting numbers. We have some astonishing, rather remarkable early voting numbers for 2020 throughout the nation. Also about a bit over 60%, is it 60%? No, about 62% of mail ballots requested in Philadelphia have been returned. So that's a good sign as far as turnout is concerned, getting some high turnout. Keep in mind, 90% of Philadelphia residents are registered to vote. 90% of Philadelphia residents So that's like 1.2 million residents throughout the city of Philadelphia are registered to vote. So I'm looking for 90% turnout, y'all. I don't know about you, but I think those early voting turnout numbers, and we'll look a little bit at that throughout the course of this program this midday. It's very important to kind of keep track of that, the early voting numbers. We had about 70 million, at least last checked. I was checking that last night, and I'm going to check in this morning too, because those tabulations are coming out daily from a few sources, but 70 million ballots throughout the country cast thus far in election 2020. The early voting total for 2016 was 58 million. So we've already well surpassed that. We're at 70 million. Also, we're almost hitting the total voter turnout from midterms like the 2010 midterm. We had very low voter turnout in the 2010 midterm. That was that midterm where President Obama was in his second year, and he called it a shellacking because he ended up losing like huge majorities in the House, also in the Senate, and also in a lot of state legislatures as well. I think 2010, Democrats lost about 1,000 combined legislative seats in 2010. And voter turnout was about, I think it was 83 million. So we're almost reaching or getting ready to surpass even those 2010 national congressional midterm numbers. So we're going to go over that. But in the meantime, let's sort of do a head check, a gut check on what's transpiring in Philly. I'm also very curious as to just me, obviously we cover, we're the political insiders, the political junkies here at Reality Check. So just very curious to see, because I'm starting to hear that chatter bubble up from folks nationally. I'm having conversations offline with strategists and pollsters and other places around the country. And so they're wondering, will this unrest that's unfolding in Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is a key, decisive battleground corner, they're wondering, will this have an impact in the final days and the final stretch of this presidential election? Will this have any impact for those voters who have not submitted ballots yet, for those voters who are poised to vote in person? Will this change votes of the last? That's out there. I'm just saying. I'm getting that question. People checking in with me, and I'm checking in with people, or we're just talking or texting or whatever. So that's being looked at. It's being looked at by a number of national folks who are getting a little bit nervous about what sort of ripple effect that may mean politically. And so that conversation is there too. It's just a very inconvenient time politically for something like this to happen. Obviously, that's not to take away from the pain and the suffering that the Wallace family is feeling, and the pain and the suffering that residents in that neighborhood on that street are feeling, and residents throughout Philadelphia. That said, it's obviously events like this that hit the national stage. Look at what happened with George Floyd. Look at what happened with Jacob Flake. They take on, they become a national sort of beast on their own. And so they take on their own life and metastasize into something completely unprecedented and unpredictable that can have far-reaching political and public policy consequences and implications. So we have to look out for that. We have to watch that here on Reality Check and elsewhere. Let me go to the phone lines, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Prince out of Schuylkill, who's calling in for a Reality Check. Prince?
Hey, Charles, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
Hey, once again, we were under the assumption that all of the police officers had tasers, so I think we need to make it mandatory that all of them carry tasers. And the problem is that city council got to look better into this, man. We can't, at the last minute, find out these nuances that a lot of police officers have rejected taking the classes that come with learning how to use the tasers. That's why all of them don't have it. So they have a special group of people who have tasers, but that's being inconsiderate to the taxpayers. If like we all on wear body cameras whether they want to or not, and we forgot to make them all wear tasers. Now, come on, man. That kind of oversight just is blatant. You're spoiled as a politician with that blatant oversight. We want to put it out there. That's ridiculous. So,
no, you're right. And in fact, the Justice Department back in 2017, in the early days of the Trump administration, but the Justice Department had recommended to the Philadelphia Police Department that all, I don't think it was a mandate, but it was definitely a very rigid recommendation that, like, or a serious recommendation that, hey, you know, all Philadelphia police officers should have tasers on them. And so that's how, obviously, we're finding out that that's not the case. Go ahead, Prince.
And so, you know, tasing would have shown a different result. You know what I mean? May have stopped him from charging or something like that. But they should have had tasers on him. Another thing is that, you know, you ask your politicians to collaborate with each other, not just on election day, but on all special situations like this. There's no way Anthony Williams should have been up there by himself without collaborating with a bunch of people, taking the podium and showing a film or movie or anything he was showing that was inappropriate. And this is the problem with our black leaders. They get together to attack people and come at people, but they don't get together to collaborate to support the initiative of us as a people. He didn't have to show anything. He just needed to show support for the family and show up and have their concerns. And now, you know, he say, don't chalk it up to being ignorant. Well, why don't we chalk it up to you having not as much of an interest in us as you should? How about that? You know, been in office 20-some years, and you make a foolish move like that. You know, you should have got with Senator Hughes. You should have got with Curtis. You should have got with a bunch of those folks and say, hey, what do you guys think? How should we approach this? And this is the kind of blatant response that we're getting. And then you talk about go out and vote for these folks, man. And I'm telling you, only 18% of people voting. There's going to be more people voting in the next few elections, man. And it's going to turn out different to have these guys in office 30 years and not get anything out of them.
Yeah, you know, exactly. I mean, any response has to be unified and collaborative.
Right.
And strategic, right. I mean, folks cannot be doing, like, political lone wolfing or looking for a moment to shine. That's just not, I mean, whether it's a time like this or any other time or any other major controversy. Acting in unified, and that's Philly, and you're right, Prince, I mean, to that point, and that's what irritates me and has always irked me about Philadelphia, let's just talk about Philly and specifically, because, you know, I haven't lived elsewhere, I didn't grow up elsewhere, but Philly Black Philly especially, you have got to do better with this. Folks keep acting in a fractured way. Unified, move collectively. You know, stop trying to, you know, create your own silo and act in a way where you're trying to create a spotlight for yourself, particularly when we come up on very important and crucial issues like this. We have to act as a collective. This is Black Philly. And that just time and time again, we keep failing at that. And that's one of the main reasons why these problems keep festering, why they're ongoing. I'm sorry, Prince. Let me stop before I go off on a rant here. But no, you're absolutely right on that. Go ahead.
No. And my last point is, tell the mayor to stop saying he grew up as a white man. Of course you grew up as a white man. You haven't grown up as an African-American person. So I'm not asking you to be sympathetic and understand what I'm going through. What I'm asking you is to stop some things that you can stop through policy. I'm tired of hearing this story. I grew up as a white man. I could never understand. No, you got a bunch of people on your staff that have grown up non-white, and you can put policies in place, you know, to stop it. This empathetic, this pathetic, empathetic approach is ridiculous, man. Like, we all are just stupid, and it's ridiculous because he say the same thing every time he get into a meeting, a church meeting. He say the same thing. I say, look, man, I don't care if you black, white, green, or orange. Put a policy in place that will show some relief, that will give some relief. You know, I hang up and I'll listen to you.
All right, no, I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Prince, for calling in. Let me go to AC out of West Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Give his thoughts.
Yeah, Brother Charles, good morning. When are we going to find out next? We've already found out that everybody doesn't have tasers. And I've heard two stories. It's the training or it's not enough. Now I don't know what's true. Don't we have enough or don't we have the training? Because the training would be simple if we had them. So, and then we find out that the homicide detectives don't have cell phones. So, I mean, what are we going to find out next? We don't have enough police cars. It's really a comedy of errors that's costing people their lives, and it's really a shame. But also today, unfortunately, we've hit this week the 400 mark in our murders. We're at 404, We're at 42%. Have you seen it so high this year? I haven't remembered it being 42%.
No, it had. That's the first time it hit 42. It's been over 40. Well, no, it's not the first time it's been, because I've seen it go up to 41, but this is the first time it's hit 42% more than what it was the same time last year. Yeah, I've been looking at it every day.
You notice, Brother Charles, it's kind of an error if you go on this site, because at the bottom it says annual percentage change compared to same day in 2019. Then when you go up to the percentage, it says compare total homicide count as of this day in 2018. They can't both be the same statistically.
Yeah.
So I think that's an error, and I have been meant to bring that up to you. But, Brother Charles, we have a long ways to go, and we're going to have to, after this is all said and done, I haven't been so much elated about the response and deaths and stuff of the politicians. So for Hardy Williams to be there by herself, I agree with Brother Prince. And also the women, they came, the two councilwomen at large, Brooks and the other councilwoman, they were there. I was impressed by that, but they're always around. So where are all of these other, the council president, he should be at all of these kind of events. Even if he didn't want to come inside, he should have been outside, in my opinion. But we have to get together after this is all over and get our black agenda together from Philadelphia for the people running for governor, and save it also for the people, tweak it for the people running for mayor. And the blueprint is out there, and if you could get in contact, we had Brother Bussy around. He has that, and Brother Bilal Qualroom. They were both heavily involved in 2015, so we can't forget about that. So, I mean, in 2009, I'm sorry. We can't forget about that, Brother Charles. We got to get this thing together. We just can't keep going, spinning the same way and then expecting results.
Yeah, expecting different results. I agree with you on that, because everyone's doing, once again, everyone's doing things in a very siloed, fractured, separate, and there's no kind of concerted, unified effort. First of all, there's no visible or cohesive kind of, like, as you called just now, like Black Philly agenda. Like, okay, what are those top 3 things we need to do? We need to address and tackle. What's the unified effort? And so it can't just be, let's just get more black people elected to office. I mean, I do want more black people. Like, who doesn't want more black people elected to office? But it just that's not the end of it. That can't just be the end of it. That can't be the strategy. So it's got to be something. And we talked a little bit about that when we had Mike Green on yesterday. You go ahead, AC. You want to finish up? So okay, I think AC, let him go. That's fine. Let's continue to keep the phone lines open. Greg out of East Falls, hold on one moment. Monica out of North Philly as well. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open. And I see I have a couple of tweets and comments as well on Facebook, so we'll get to those here on Reality Check. It is midday here on Wednesday on WURD. Let's take a break and we'll be right back with your phone calls.
This year has been unprecedented. From the COVID pandemic to nationwide protests addressing systemic racism and calling for criminal justice reform. For weeks, we've been reminding you to make your voice heard in this election, and now is the time to act. Voting is how we empower our communities, and this election day, we can make things happen for us instead of letting things happen to us. So use your power and make your plan to vote today. If you signed up to vote by mail, don't wait. Complete your ballot. Put it in the small envelope and seal it. Then put it in a larger envelope and seal that too. Sign and date it. Then drop off your ballot at your county election office today. If you have not signed up to vote by mail, go to the polls on Tuesday, November 3rd. Make sure to confirm your polling location and don't forget to wear a mask. Polling places are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. To find your county election office or polling location, visit votespa.com. Take your power to the polls and vote. Paid for by Power Interfaith.
Hi, my name is Dr. Blake. If you're out there with residual baby fat and you want that waistline back, Smart Lipo Laser is for you at Blake GI Med Spa Services. It is affordable, minimally invasive, minimum discomfort, minimum downtime, and no loose skin. You will see results in 24 hours. Give us a call at Blake GI Med Spa Services today. 215-849-4902.
I'm Philadelphia City Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, and this message is for the sisters. We wear a lot of hats. We're mothers, aunties and daughters, teachers, community leaders, and CEOs. We rise to the occasion every day. We're good at it too. And now, more than ever, we need to do what we do. Show up and show out this election. To organize, to make those calls and get out the vote. To stand up for our families and our communities, just like you do every single day, every single time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are counting on us, and we know that we can count on them.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Did you get an eviction notice before the shutdown? Are you looking for a lawyer once the moratorium ends? There's so many questions with so little time. Let Equally Informed Philly find the answers for you. Just text the phrase Equal Info to the number 73224. Again, that's Equal Info, one word, to 73224. Their community information line will get the answers you need to survive in the time of COVID-19. Equally Informed Philly for all Philadelphians.
New Voices for Reproductive Justice is mobilizing Black women in Philly and our families to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. You can mail or drop off your ballot or vote early in person at 20 locations in Philadelphia and Delaware County right now. For more information, visit newvoicesrj.org/2020elections. That's newvoicesrj.org/2020elections.
Did you know you can catch the flu and COVID-19 at the same time or even back to back? Don't risk catching the flu during the COVID-19 pandemic. The flu shot is a safe and effective way of reducing your chances of catching the flu or spreading it to others. And the flu shot helps protect you and your community from the worst effects of the flu. Don't say, I should have got my flu shot. Call your doctor or visit your pharmacist and get your flu shot today.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
We there? All right. Welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Greg out of East Falls, who's calling in for a reality check. Greg?
Hey, how you doing there, Charles?
How you doing, sir?
I'm okay. I don't even know where to begin. I am a retired CEO from Greater Foot, and the training that we receive is a lot of the training as far as policy and rules that law enforcement all over receive. So it's uniform. One thing that I heard the commissioner say, and she needs to cut this out about, well, they don't have no tasers. They may not have tasers, but part of their standard uniform is a baton. You are taught hand-to-hand combat. Now, and so why they did, and even it should be part of their policy that every officer is supposed to have it on their possession. If you ever notice, it's two things that will zipify my point. If you ever notice, you very seldom see cops have batons at all, which means if they get into a confrontation, 9 times out of 10, they're going to pull their gun. I went out 52nd Street last night, and they got those riot people, cops out in riot gear. All of them got batons. So, and you're taught hand-to-hand combat. You have a force continuum that determines your level of force that you're supposed to use. The seventh one is the most deadliest one that they employ. What happened to the other six? The other six, and it has different things that in that case, they could have just overwhelmed them with the first force continuum that there's a show of force. They knew if they had a situation like that. So you wait for backup. You already had 2 officers there.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I also want to say is this. Trump said something, and we got to pay attention to it. Some people raise issues about about the possibility and the timing of what Trump said, but people sometimes want to blow that off as conspiracy theories. Not me. He said bad things happen in Philly, and all of a sudden, this man gets shot. Now, I don't think that it was planned that he would be the one shot. But then I look at John McNesky. I don't know if you saw a letter that he sent to his members almost immediately, where he asked for prayers for the cops that shot him, but not for the family. I mean, that's who we're dealing with, and they supported Trump. So, to me, and the more I think about it, in my mind, that was a direct threat. Things bad happen in Philly. And one last point I want to say is this. This situation, somebody made a comment earlier, and they're right. This situation can be addressed. People, but who they have on them panels? Who they have on them panels, like George said before, who they have on them panels, and people are just trying to get on these boards and ain't doing nothing. You don't have the right people on there. You don't have the right people that, one, is really concerned about their people without no agenda, and people who know. I can get in a conversation with them, and I'm not advocating that it be me, but I can get to the conversation about the mayor, with the commissioner, and talk about police procedures, and when they come back at me, it's nothing that they can tell me that there isn't a solution for. So they can stop this if they want to go. And the commissioner need to back off of that about, now they're going to say they don't have enough money. Come on with it.
I mean, either you want to, I mean, either you want to train or better train, or, at least, I mean, some of that stuff is low-hanging fruit. And, to your point, Greg, no, absolutely. I got to let you go because I want to take on these other, because some very good points, Greg. So, it's food for thought. Let me go to Monica out of North Philly, who's been waiting for a reality check. Monica, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. I'm okay. Well, hanging in there. I don't want to say I'm good, just hanging in there.
Yeah, I know. Last night was terrible. I'm in Kensington. So what I wanted to say, I understand your theory about the thing about we're doing things fractured and not doing things in a unified way. But I will tell you from my experience, 5 years ago, I was a frequent caller to your radio station because I was just trying to fix up a property, abandoned property, to do the summer lunch program for the kids. And somehow I became public enemy #1 for wanting to do this. And I was confused 5 years ago. I mean, it was even people on this radio station that were talking about I was an agent, but they didn't realize I was a real estate agent. They were like, she's got all these white developer friends, and she's trying to do stuff to our kids. And I'm thinking, I'm a real estate agent. I'm not a federal agent. But it got very strange, and it got very disheartening as someone who wanted to do something in the community. Yeah. Now, what I was taught by my son, who works in the food industry,
you were trying to, real quick, Monica. I'm sorry, Monica. Real quick, you were trying to rally people behind, like you were trying to do some sort of ambitious kind of real estate effort.
What it is, I'm a real estate agent. So the house that I raised my children in became abandoned. The bank only wanted $5,000 for it, so I took out a little business loan, and I fixed the house up like a little restaurant.
Okay.
And so the kids didn't have to eat their food on the curb, and it was just going to be part of my little retirement, do the summer lunch program for the kids. And the city council people stopped speaking to me, and the RCO was voting against me, and I said, well, this is really strange. How can you not want kids to have summer lunch program? And people were saying, oh, she's hard to work with, and she's doing this to get. How am I getting publicity be donating my summer to sitting with everybody's kids in the neighborhood and giving them a milk, a sandwich, and some fruit. But
Yeah, Philly folks are rough. I mean, Philly is full of bullies, and I mean, I see that too with what's the sister who's in North Philly? She's not from Philly, but she's got the restaurant, and she donates a lot. She contributes a lot. Saw it, right? And I see her on Instagram a lot, and she complains quite a bit. You know, she does all this stuff for the community, and people still got issues with her. I'm like, you know, she's doing the work. I'm like, maybe she's not doing the work the way, like, any of us would want her to do it. But, I mean, she's giving a lot of her heart. I mean, she's putting a lot out there. People still got, people in Philly, I mean, nationwide, she's like a hero. Black folks, I know, who from across the country, because they call me. They're like, yo, that girl, that sister Saw It. Like, she's really doing the work there in Philly. And I'm like, well, tell Philly people that. Because they don't seem to, like, think so as much. But, you know, I hear you. But, no, go ahead, Monica. Sorry.
Here's the thing, the point that I wanted to make.
Yeah, go ahead.
My son is in the food business on a high level. And when he drilled it in my head, it took about a year for me to understand it. But when you provide emergency food for your people, you help the systems in place continue. So when the COVID emergency happened and farmers was pouring milk out and vegetables was getting plowed under, the emergency food systems in place keep things moving to the people, keep people eating. Now, I didn't know that there were people who were so foolish in our community that they were like, they never questioned, go after the lunch lady. How wrong could that be?
Yeah.
When I'm having people 5 years later, a person who's a community activist and very does a lot of work with the resident community organization. She said she was asked not to support me. And she did it. She went along with them, and she said, I wonder why they didn't like you and didn't want you to feed the kids. She said, but I went along with it. Yeah. And when you got people in Philly who will go along with something wrong, just to be buddy-buddy with people.
Right. Philly's very, very cliquish. We all about cliques in Philly. I'm called as I see it on that. I've seen that since I was a kid growing up in North Philly. Y'all got to cut that click stuff out. Like, Philly is very bad at, you know, it's so bad when I'm in other places or I'm talking to other people and I tell, you know, I'm from, you know, where are you from? Oh, Philly. You know, oh yeah, or you the guy from Philly, WRD, right? I'm like, yeah. They're like, you know what? I mean, I've had people from places like DC, Atlanta, LA, New Orleans talk about how cliquish, or who spent, you know, maybe did business in Philly. They said, man, y'all got a really serious, they're like, y'all got a severe click problem. Like, y'all are really cliquish, and to your own detriment. Thank you for saying that, Monica. Real quick, Monica, wrap up, because I'm going to call it as I see it. Philly is a very cliquish place. It's very classist. It's very classist, first of all. It's very, like, you know, the black folks are very classist. Very like, oh, you in this neighborhood, you low income, or you in that neighborhood, and you know, middle income, or you Jack and Jill or whatever. And it's what ruins Black Philly. It's what ruined and then we wonder why things can't get fixed. I'm just saying, and I appreciate Monica for calling it as she sees it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish up, Monica. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, when we say that thing about us being fractured or unified, right. I was the one who was serving this particular block, and there was no one else. But there should have been somebody 3 or 4 blocks away serving their block, and we collaborated. Right. And then somebody 3 or 4 blocks in another direction, and we collaborate. Right. And then all of us on a larger scale collaborate with other food entities. But that's not how Philly doesn't understand. It took me a year to understand why do the feds give out free food. My son had to drill it into my head. And once you realize if the schools aren't buying the milk, then the emergency food people, the summer lunch people, the pantries, they have to move that milk. Yeah. And the milk got to be moved in, 7 or 8 days.
Interesting. Wow. I hear you. I mean, it's, you know, something like that, what you were trying to do, it's a good mission. And, you know, so folks should have approached you if they had issues with the way you were going about it. Just, you know, try to like guide you through it, try to mentor you about it. And I find that that's like that's an ongoing Philly problem. Like, it's the Philly mindset, you know, rather than like see people doing good things in the community, trying to raise the community up. It's like you know, people nitpick and point out things where they're already established or embedded in their particular social clique or social network, and so they look for things that are wrong. You know, they look for ways to bring it down. That's we have a really bad habit with that. Monica, thanks for sharing that. I'm sorry you had to go through that too, but I'm hoping that you're still keeping up that work, because that work's needed. It's essential work in a place, because people in Philly all the time, Black people especially in Philly, we always talk about how broken a city, how distressed the city it is. Okay, well then let's get to work, and let's get to work together then, and stop bullying people who are trying to do the good work. Stop trying to destroy folks in the community who are really sincere and trying to make things happen and trying to reverse the conditions in Philly. Like, cut that out. Like, either like we do it together or we don't. All right, thanks for that, Monica. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sorry, but I'm also annoyed just hearing the stress in your voice. I can imagine you going through that, and there's a lot of folks go through that. Let me take a break, and then let me get my faculties back. Take a break. Harai out of Wynwood. Keith, also stay tuned. Hold on. 215-634-8. 215, I'm so annoyed. 215-634-866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. Feel free to call in. We'll talk to you. We'll be right back.
Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. For testing hours and more information, visit jeffersonhealth.org/community testing.
I'm Philadelphia City Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, and this message is for the sisters. We wear a lot of hats. We're mothers, aunties and daughters, teachers, community leaders, and CEOs. We rise to the occasion every day. We're good at it too. And now, more than ever, we need to do what we do. Show up and show out this election. To organize, to make those calls and get out the vote, to stand up for our families and our communities, just like you do every single day, every single time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are counting on us, and we know that we can count on them.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time, Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com.
Remember when Trump defended neo-Nazis?
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Or downplayed the coronavirus?
It's going to disappear one day. It's like a miracle.
It's time to fire politicians who failed us and elect leaders who will fight systemic racism, have a plan to beat the coronavirus, and will address bias in our healthcare system. This election, remember whose side Trump is on, not yours. Request a ballot now. Make a plan to vote. Our lives depend on it. Paid for by the NAACP.
WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Many of us have heard this term before, but may not know what it really means. Compassionate living brings mindfulness and peace to the center of your daily life. Compassionate living can look like this. Number 1, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Number 2, choose to speak kindly to others, even when you're upset. Number 3, become a good listener and practice empathy at home and at work. We sometimes think in order to live with compassion, we have to become someone else. Not so. In fact, allowing peacefulness to be at the center of our daily interactions is something we can practice every day. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at wordradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Keith, I'm not sure what part of the city he's from, but Keith is calling in for a reality check. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm calling from North Philly, Keith.
North Philly, Keith. What's good?
Yeah,
all right.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning. Good morning. North Philly represent.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I was going to comment on two things. The shooting happened in West Philly and also the Black Agenda. You know, Police Commissioner Outlaw, you know, we can't put all that on her right now. I mean, she just got there. You got to go through procurement and all that stuff, be transferring money around the police department. It's politics in itself.
Yeah,
you know?
fair enough.
So you got to get that woman a
Well,
chance.
they're going to have to. I agree with you, Keith. But fair enough on that. I agree with you. They're going to have to speed things up, though. I mean, just based on the time that we're in, I hear that a lot. I do, and I do want to be. And I keep prefacing every time I engage in any critique of the commissioner. I want her to work. I really want her to do her job well. I don't want. I don't want this on her. I don't want to wish bad on her. I don't want to wish bad on anyone. But they're going to have to quicken the pace up because we're in this moment. Everyone sees this big national moment we're in, right? And so I think they're going to have to step things up. Go ahead, Keith.
Yes. But these white police officers need, like, you know, there should never be two white police officers in black areas. There shouldn't be. I mean, I understand that you got some good white officers, but you gotta mix it up. You gotta be a white and a black officer, right? And also, I've seen police officers on video. Like, I work for Homeland Security as a contract security officer, carrying the same equipment police officers have, right? My patience was so well with people. Like, they come on these government buildings and government locations that I had to protect, right? I mean, so slow. Like, and then when you even doing qualifications for shooting your firearm, you have to have trigger control. It didn't take two officers to unload two guns into that guy. Like, you know, and then when do they stand down? He wasn't, I understand that he charged at them, right? But his mom already said that he had a mental condition, right? And they have so much more patience when they're dealing with white perpetrators. Yeah. And I know that also the thing on, well, white people get killed, to understand that. But for the most part, this guy had a mental incapacity, and they knew that because the mother was saying she was trying to stop him. But they were so agile and seemed like they just was like wanted to unload that gun. And I don't care what they say. Well, he charged at us, like, you know. So I understand the training. And as far as the Black Agenda,
yeah,
we always was more effective, right? In the government, look, the responsibilities of the government, right, is really lacking on us on a Black Agenda. They do have, like, this beyond reparations. Like, they took our money when we had the Freedman Bank. They need to replace that money. This beyond reparations. But also, through Garvey, the Elijah Muhammad movement, Noble Drew, we always was more effective when we were self-sufficient, too. Like, the biggest aggregators of money now is the churches and the mosques. And the people, we need a black fund, and every family can put up $1. It could be channeled through the churches and the mosques without being mixed up with their money. And we can rise so fast in this country because that's what we did in Greenwood, like, you know what I mean, in Tulsa, right? And I think I'm in my 50s, so the generation under me seen the last of the modern-day Black Wall Street because it was all black stores, all black funeral homes. Now we have this condition through the crack epidemic, and we are on the rise again. I can say I'm an optimist, and I can see it. But we have to start being self-sufficient also with propagating our Black Agenda.
Yeah, we do. We do. Thank you for that message, Keith. I think folks need to hear it this morning. Let me go. I gotta let you go. Let me bring on some other folks. Thank you for that. Some good thoughts, and good thoughts with respect to a new policing paradigm in Philly. Let me go to Haraya out of Wynwood, calling for a reality check. Ms. Haraya.
Yes. Good morning, Charles. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, this is really a sad time. The thing about it is, Charles, is I want to piggyback on the brother that was talking about the man-to-man combat or the hand-to-hand combat. Charles, you can't keep making us pay taxes for putting people out there that are feeling so insecure and so fearful. There's no way in the world that a trained person, I could see if you put a bunch of schoolgirls out there or some old women like me out there, something like that, but when you charge us tax dollars to have trained professionals out on the street, these guys train attack dogs, okay? I've seen them put something around their arm, coating around their arm for the dog to come charging at them and them wrestling with a dog and this, that, and the other. So you going to tell me that you're so fearful when a man 15, 20 feet away and you out there with a couple of your police officers that you are fearing so much that you got to put rounds and rounds of bullets into him, even if you shot the man in the kneecap or something one time or whatever, Yeah. But to shoot at all, they have to shoot at all. But you cannot keep making us pay tax dollars to have unprepared people out on the street that feel that they should be judge, jury, and executioner. That's not what we're paying tax dollars for. We're paying tax dollars to have people protect the community and qualified to protect the community. And that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I thank you for that, Harai, too. And Philadelphia Police Department has one of the largest big city police forces in the country. I think it's like 50 officers per 10,000 residents in the city of Philadelphia. I mean, that's a high officer to resident ratio. They have one of the highest officer to resident ratios. So, the Philadelphia has had this legacy of wanting a big, large municipal police force that's well stocked, that's well armed. So train it well. I mean, that's fine. That's fine if you want. It's a big city, and it's a city also with a lot of problems, a lot of stress. We've already well past the Rubicon of 400 homicides, since we're at 404 homicides now in Philadelphia. We haven't reached the end of 2020 yet. I think, practical folks out there understand the need for that layer of public safety. But train them well, right? Train them, maybe it's not getting through in the hand-to-hand combat. Maybe there's too much time that's put into firearms training, not enough time being put in hand-to-hand combat training. Okay, well, adopt martial arts training from military branches like the Marine Corps. Marine Corps has a very successful martial arts branch, and so that's why the Marines can, they know when they get into a situation, okay, if I don't have a weapon, I can use my hands, and also maybe that's what police agencies need, is advanced martial arts training. So maybe in those situations, officers, because martial arts also helps people channel anger and channel frustration or pent up rage. And maybe that's something that, should be explored. I'm just saying, people might think that sounds insane or ridiculous. Okay, well, it's not me. You've got the most powerful and most well-trained military force in the world, Marines. They do it. And we had Mike Green on here yesterday who was saying even military police, they're better trained for unarmed hand-to-hand combat response in situations like that than even civilian police, right? And he's had both military police and civilian police experience. So something's not getting through, and there's a lot more. And then we find out about the tasers. Well, the 2 officers didn't have the tasers. We talked about the tasers yesterday. We didn't know when we were having that conversation yesterday. When that news came out after I had that conversation here on Reality Check, we found out the police officers didn't have the tasers. When the Justice Department, the Federal Justice Department gave a firm recommendation to the city of Philadelphia, hey, all your officers should be equipped with tasers. Also at Norris Eugene on Twitter, one of our listeners is saying, police departments have CIT officers, crisis intervention teams. If police were called to the home 3 times in the same day, the CIT officers ever come out? I don't know. Why wasn't he 302'd? Police are able to do 302s, involuntary hospitalization. The other big question here, too, and I'll go to Sister Murray in a second, is, are police departments or police officers, this is a very simple question, are police departments, are police officers, considering the times that we're in now, considering how frequent these incidents are, and considering how well publicized they are, I mean, are police officers living in a bubble? I mean, are police reading the room, the national room? Like, if you're in a situation like you see the situation escalating, you call out 3 times a day, okay, understand, he had a knife. He had a knife. Let's not act like he didn't have a knife. Let's not act like either that he didn't have a knife and that he wasn't charging that he was running around belligerent. And yes, he did have a mental illness. And yes, if he was white, he probably would survive. Because I've seen situations with white mentally ill people, and I mean, we've seen white mass shooters get out of incidents alive, right? So understanding that, but you see that situation escalating. You understand what's going on throughout the nation. I mean, it's not like these cops are living in bubbles or insulated from what's going on nationally. You can't restrain yourself from, like, you can't say, you know what, man, maybe we should use the baton and the pepper spray, or a combination of both. Or, hey, while I use the baton, you use the pepper spray, and then I'll just elbow them or knock them down. Like, use just brute force that way. Like, you couldn't read the national, like, but now here we end up, and things have popped off, and you've got everything from protests to social unrest happening in Philly. I just wonder, like, our cops and our police agencies and the police commissioners, are they reading the national room? Like, we're in this big tense moment now, and it's sure enough, this happens. It's like, come on, y'all. Sister Murray out of Northern Liberty is calling in for a reality check. Sister Murray?
Yes. Hi, Charles. How are you today?
How are you doing? All right.
I'm hanging in there. It's so much going on. You just don't know where to start from. The young man who got killed, no one ever want to see anything like this.
No.
And there was a young white man that got killed the other day in Nixon State Park by accident, by a gunshot, and they believe suspect might have been a hunter. But the thing about that is, you don't see his family out there tearing down stores and tearing up where they live at. We have to be smarter than this. We got to be careful because we're being set up. And
we are being set up. We do. Thank you for saying that. We do.
We got to get control over our kids.
Yeah, we do.
You should know where your kids are. You
at a time like this,
let your kids get involved in this kind of activities, because
that's right.
What do you think that's going to come out of bad? What do you think that's going to come out of? If you're running them stores and you're looting and tearing up stuff, and we just now got finished this. We're trying to heal from all this going on. But you know what John Lewis says? We got to start getting in good trouble. We cannot keep letting these people from the outside come in here, start these riots, and we join in and tear up our own neighborhoods. We got to stop them. We got to stop it. Get away from it. Turn the other corner. Don't feed into this nonsense, because it's not going to get you in a good place. No, the officer should not have shot him down like that, and they should have 302'd him. And it's everything that you said too, Charles, right before you came on to me. And, they have to find other solutions. They closed down Barberry again. They put all the drug sites in here where they can go and inject themselves up. These people are on pills, they're on drugs. And now what do you think is going to happen? It's like a time bomb. And everything that Trump is saying about Philadelphia, we can't feed into that stuff. We've been living here our whole life. This man wouldn't even walk down the street.
Right.
Better about kids. Your kids come running in the house with a whole bunch of stolen stuff, and they don't have no job. Put them out. Put them out. Make them go and take it back.
Take it back.
Tell them I'm not going to have this in my house.
Right.
We can take control, Charles. I want to
we can.
We need to continue to support WRD. Get your memberships, please. We cannot let that go untalked about. Continue to support, and let's get our kids and get control over our kids. We can pull this back together. God bless you, and I pray for the family. Amen.
Amen. Amen to that. No, Sister Murray, spot on with that. Like, get control of your young ones in a moment like this. Know where they are. Keep them in the house. There's no justification for acting out like that. There's no justification. No, there's not. Sorry, none. Don't get set up, because and this happened the last time. They keep getting set up. Don't let your young people get set up. Don't get set up to fail. Like, we are being set up to fail. Don't fall into that trap. And so I completely agree, 150%, as I say, with Sister Murray. So yes, there's a lot of anger, understandable anger and resentment and angst and anxiety and nervousness, and also people living in very difficult, hard circumstances and times. I understand that. I do understand that. I've lived through some of those difficult times and circumstances growing up. I get it. I totally get it. It's no reason for you, but as difficult as the circumstances were, like, you still have common sense. And there's just no need for, there's certain bad actors and forces that are trying to stir things up in Philadelphia. They are in Philly looking for opportunity moments to stir things up and create a moment of chaos. But some of us out there too, and we gotta, we're gonna have to maintain. We're going to have to help our young people too maintain some self-control and not get set up. That is happening. And so Sister Murray's right. As uncomfortable as that conversation and that reality is, so some of you out there are going to have to stop it, cut it out, and also do what you can within your power to tell your young ones and tell your neighbors and your family and people or peoples, like, hey, yo, cut it out. Like, don't get set up like that. So especially during a time like this. All right, let me I'm sorry, Brianna. I went over time here. It's a lot and it's emotional. Let me take a break, and then we'll come back on the other side. We're actually supposed to be talking with Ashton Lattimore, who's the chief editor over at Prism Magazine. We're talking about environmental racism before, during, and after pandemic, when we get past the pandemic, but a very important topic. It's good to have Ashton Lattimore. She'll be coming up next. She's scheduled to talk with us here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I'm Philadelphia City Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, and this message is for the sisters. We wear a lot of hats. We're mothers, aunties and daughters, teachers, community leaders, and CEOs. We rise to the occasion every day. We're good at it too. And now, more than ever, we need to do what we do. Show up and show out this election. To organize, to make those calls and get out the vote. To stand up for our families and our communities, just like you do every single day, every single time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are counting on us, and we know that we can count on them.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Hey, WURD family. Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
As our nation battles a pandemic and economic downturn, the health and financial security of voters over 50 are on the line. That's why AARP Pennsylvania is fighting for your voice to be heard. From preventing cuts to Social Security, to protecting Medicare, to lowering prescription drug prices, you deserve to cast your vote on issues that matter to you, and AARP Pennsylvania is here to help. We want to make sure that you know all of your voting options and that all Americans, from working parents to family caregivers to seniors in nursing homes, can vote safely whether they choose to vote from home or in person. To learn more about how AARP Pennsylvania is fighting to protect voters 50 plus and how to make your voice heard this November, visit aarp.org/PA votes. Paid for by AARP.
Hi, I'm Keir Bradford Gray, the Chief Defender of the Defender Association of Philadelphia. I've spent my career helping to reform our criminal justice system by advancing client-centered representation that empowers our communities to be stronger and safer. Our communities are still over-policed and under-resourced. This year, accountability is on the ballot, and we can finally have the community police oversight that we desperately need.
Paid for by Black Vote PA, which is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.theelectionisnow.com.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. This is WURD Radio. 96.1 FM. And 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Is our Wednesday midweek midday edition here on the home of Black Talk Media in Philly and beyond is WURD. We're 96.1 FM, 900 AM in Philly proper, but beyond throughout the nation, throughout the world, we stream live at WURD Radio, WURDradio.com. Also on WURD TV, WURD app as well. Ashton Lattimore is executive editor, chief editor at Prism Magazine. Go to prismreports.org. Great, insightful magazine. I've got some great writing that's there. Anoa Shanga, who we've had on here on occasion, got to bring her back. We don't bring her on enough. Writes regularly as an electoral justice reporter for Prism Magazine. So we brought on the chief editor, Ashton Lattimore. Really enjoyed this piece. I enjoyed it, and I appreciated this piece she wrote some time back over the summer, confronting environmental racism before, during, and after the pandemic. It's a conversation we have. We have environmental justice, injustice, racism conversations all the time here on Reality Check, and particularly through our EcoWord Environmental Justice Journalism Project. So wanted to bring Ashton on to talk a little bit more about that, expound on some of the issues she was talking about, because it's a very relevant conversation and always relevant here on WURD. Ashton, how are you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show, Charles.
All right. No, thanks for coming on. And thanks for this piece. We do need to look at the pandemic through an environmental injustice lens, don't we? And talk about how we do that, because it is, I mean, on so many levels, COVID-19 is not just a pandemic. It's not just a public health crisis. It is an environmental racism crisis as well. Like, we are understanding, like, environmental racism is a challenge. It's a battle over, like, space, the quality of life within that space at the end of the day, the quality of life in those spaces that we live in. Talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. I mean, you're absolutely right. This is an environmental racism, environmental justice crisis. And you can see that along a number of dimensions, you know, just starting with the numbers of cases that we're seeing, you know, in Black and brown communities of COVID, and kind of the higher susceptibility that we're seeing among Black folks to this is something that can be tied in many cases directly back to environmental racism. You know, living in communities that are closer to Superfund sites with more air pollution, so people are struggling with asthma, and then you add a respiratory illness, a respiratory pandemic into that situation, and what you're going to see is a group of people who are just incredibly vulnerable in a way that they wouldn't be if their communities weren't consistently subject to the kinds of zoning and just being pushed into places where the environment's just not, you know, conducive to healthy air, healthy living. And even setting apart from that, you know, life during the pandemic, so many of us have started to depend on just going outdoors, being outdoors in this moment. There's not a ton else you can do. So, you know, you want to take your kids to the park. You want to, you know, be outside taking walks. But if you're in communities where you don't have, you know, access to parks, you're not feeling safe, you know, taking a walk, that's another area where environmental injustice is showing up, just preventing people from even doing the things that can protect their health and their mental health as we're trying to navigate this moment.
What are some of the, you list out, you look at and explore, present like a number of stories that have been reported on in Prison Magazine, you look at a number of places. What are some of those places that are standing out for you where we've seen the environmental racism exacerbate or been aggravated as a result of this pandemic? The pandemic has laid bare, hey, listen, this is not just the public health dimensions and the economic dimensions, poverty dimensions, et cetera, but hey, the environmental racism, like what you were just describing just now, the environmental racism, the environmental injustice, people are becoming a little bit more aware, cognizant of that, more sensitive to that. What are some kind of case studies for you that stand out?
One of the key places where this was showing up was California, and this is of course this is a piece I put together in the summer before all the wildfires started. But even then, in California, you can see Black and Latino folks who live out there are living in closer proximity to these sites that have high levels of pollution, air pollution, kind of ground pollution, all these things that put people at high risk of asthma, bronchitis. And other lung issues. So that's a place where there's a very clear kind of tie to the issues that are being raised by the pandemic. And one of our freelance contributors, Audrey Carlton, wrote that piece for us, just detailing how environmental racism is putting folks at risk in California. And then, of course, the other kind of big issue we're facing in the midst of the pandemic is the spate of police violence that we've seen over the course of the last few years, all of these issues kind of colliding with each other at once. And then another piece that we had over the summer was from another freelance contributor, Nisha Powell, who talked about how this Georgia town where Ahmaud Arbery, was killed and where he called home, has a significant environmental racism program. Again, these sites with hazardous materials called Superfund sites that can take years, up to a century to clean all the way up. So what this has really highlighted are some of the ways that environmental justice is exacerbating issues of racism, of showing up in the same places as other forms of racism, and exacerbating the pandemic, and also highlighting, I think, the larger kind of societal problem we have with the pandemic and with things like climate change, which is that, Americans seem to have a serious problem with collective action for the good of everyone. So something like a pandemic, something like climate change, that requires us to all row together in the same direction for the good of everyone to solve the problem, don't seem to be, at least so far, within our wherewithal.
We talk about this often here on this program and others through our EcoWord project, and that's why it's so encouraging. Like when I see publications like yours, outlets like yours, focused in on this and reporting more and more on it, discussing it more. But you often hear, and now the WURD audience is kind of used to us talking quite a bit over the past few years about environmental racism, environment, climate crisis, et cetera. But, there's always that reaction of, this is not, like, why are we talking about this? This is white people's issue. And I'm sure you hear that often. I want to get your thoughts. I keep reflecting on that because that's a big part of the problem too. Like this, because I was talking to a major environmental journalist yesterday, Emily Atkin. She does this. She's like a climate crisis journalist, writes for the New Republic, et cetera. And she was saying, like, the environment, this will be the top issue. Like right now, it's one of the top issues. She's like, no, this will be the top issue, and it's going to aggravate. It's actually going to be at the center of everything that that vulnerable communities like Black communities are experiencing through racism. She said it will be at the center of it. And she's white, and so she was kind of saying this, and we were having this kind of back and forth on it. I want to get your feelings on that. How we as a collective Black community need to have this conversation, and how we kind of get through to sort of the Black pop culture, especially, like, hey, listen, this is our issue. We're not just on the front line of it and getting hit the hardest by it, but we need to be leaders in it.
That's exactly right. We do need to be leaders in it. And I think something that is so important, and that there are going to be more opportunities for as we go forward, is to lead, through the electoral process. That means, Black and brown communities deciding to elect people who are putting environmental justice at the forefront of their platforms. And we actually published a story today, going into how there are many more Black candidates who are putting environmental justice at the center of their campaigns and making that an issue that they are focused on more. But that's one of the ways that we can take this and lift it up to the highest levels of government, and have folks who are from our communities be leading in those halls of power to really make those shifts. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be individual, community-based actions that resolve this problem. This needs sustained government, federal government, state government, international attention. So I think the more that we can be calling attention to that, the more that Black folks can be inserting ourselves into the levels of government where these solutions can be put in place, I think the more power we're going to have to really shift the conversation. Because it's like you said, we are absolutely on the front lines of it and most impacted. As the oceans rise and, the coast get in trouble. I mean, the coastal Black communities, the Gulf Coast, and, folks in New York and, here in Philly,
exactly,
outside of Philly. So this is incredibly urgent, and it's urgent for us in particular.
And I'm glad you made that point, because part of it's not just like us, like the sort of natural reflex on the part of us to be like, oh, that's a white people's issue. But I mean, it's the media too. Like mainstream media drives that sort of narrative that it's not our issue. Like when the hurricanes hit, they're just primarily covering white people who live on on coastal properties. And that's sad. It's sad that they're losing their property and they're going through. No one wants to wish bad on those populations or want to see them going through that kind of pain. But then you have these very distressed, already vulnerable, no savings in the bank account Black communities, some brown communities too, who are living in those hot zones, those climate crisis zones. They don't get covered as much. Like the California, Oregon, out west wildfires, we never see, okay, well, what's happening to the low-income Black people out there living in parts of Southern California? So you will never see their story. But so that's why it's so important for like publications, outlets like yours to cover that story. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ashton.
No, you're absolutely right. Just the more these dangers kind of proliferate, there are families out in California dealing with the wildfires, and then you have kind of low-income folks or even people who are incarcerated who are going to be primarily, Black, Latino folks who are going to be forced to deal with these environmental crises. Low-income Black and brown people are often the ones who have to rebuild after a hurricane, who are doing the work of rebuilding, of fighting the fires. So putting people genuinely in harm's way as a result of these climate crisis events that are going to keep happening at a much higher pace. So it's absolutely incumbent on the media outlets like Prism and outlets, all across the media really, to cover these in a way that honors and accurately reflects the impact on Black people around the country.
Let me ask you, could you or have you kind of in your head sort of designed that perfect environmental justice, environmental injustice, environmental racism response framework? Like, what does that look like? And we've had sort of touched on bits and pieces of it in this conversation, like where you were saying, for example, hey, we need to elect people who put this as a top priority, environmental injustice, environmental racism, on their platforms. That helps. But in your mind, like, is there kind of like that 3, 4, 5-point environmental injustice or environmental justice response program that can help us, overcome those types of barriers and help us really become like leaders in this, but create a whole new, brand new movement out of this that helps us not just respond to climate crisis, but helps us reduce or eliminate the impact of things like climate crisis, like pollution, and all those other public health issues that happen with that?
Yeah. So this is my bias because, I run a news website, but I think, part of that response will need to be Black-led outlets, like Prism, like WURD, stepping up and putting this issue in front of our community in a way that centers our concerns and our issues. And I think that's kind of one of the first steps in framing the debate. And for us to be in conversation with people who are doing the work on the ground, because, there are local organizers in many Black communities throughout the country who are working on environmental justice issues at the local level and also doing advocacy at the state and federal level. So I think that's point one, kind of getting our messaging and our understanding of the issues right. And once we've done that, then yes, I think, electing people who center this in their platforms are most important. And in terms of the issues that people need to look at, I think it needs to go beyond kind of the broad-based kind of climate change concern, which I think is what gets a lot of focus right now, and rightfully so, because it's a big issue. But environmental injustice is about more than just climate change. Environmental justice is about ground pollution and access to green spaces near people's homes, the ability for people to have access to clean water. So these are all things that can certainly be exacerbated by the climate crisis, but really developing a holistic understanding of what environmental justice is will be a key step in resolving it.
Yeah, I like that. I like the way you frame that. We've been talking with Ashton Lattimore. She is chief editor of Prism Magazine, prismreports.org, for some great reporting there. Are you from Philly, Ashton? I didn't realize I saw you at Ashton Lattimore, and I saw Philly. Are you based in Philly, or are you from Philly?
I am based in Bryn Mawr, so I'm like 15 minutes outside.
Okay, there you go. I didn't realize that. Okay, we didn't realize. Okay, that's good. So we definitely get to bring you on a little bit more often. Really appreciate this conversation. Ashton Lattimore, at Ashton Lattimore, chief editor of Prism Magazine, prismreports.org. You can check out the writing of her colleagues and various reporters who were on the scene, particularly with issues like Election 2020 and issues like this, environmental justice, environmental racism, and some writing from herself as well. She's joining us here on Reality Check WURD. Ash, we're going to bring you back more often. Love having your colleague Anoa on. Really appreciate that. So want to make sure that we're a bit more intentional about it, make it more frequent. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Charles.
All right. Take care. Let's take a break. And when we come back on the other side, we'll be talking with Becky Monroe of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, and want to talk about the threat of white supremacist groups, armed white nationalists at the polls. That is an issue still, particularly when we're less than a week out from D-Day, from Election Day 2020. So we're going to bring back Becky Monroe, Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, when we come back here on Reality Check, WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This year has been unprecedented. From the COVID pandemic to nationwide protests addressing systemic racism and calling for criminal justice reform. For weeks, we've been reminding you to make your voice heard in this election, and now is the time to act. Voting is how we empower our communities, and this election day, we can make things happen for us instead of letting things happen to us. So use your power and make your plan to vote today. If you signed up to vote by mail, don't wait. Complete your ballot, put it in the small envelope and seal it. Then put it in a larger envelope and seal that too. Sign and date it. Then drop off your ballot at your county election office today. If you have not signed up to vote by mail, go to the polls on Tuesday, November 3rd. Make sure to confirm your polling location, and don't forget to wear a mask. Polling places are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. To find your county election office or polling location, visit votespa.com. Take your power to the polls and vote. Paid for by Power Interfaith.
Dietz & Watson has been making premium meats and artisan cheeses for over 80 years. And when it comes to stacking sandwiches and party platters, they've got something for everyone in the family, like maple honey turkey breast, American cheese, buffalo chicken, and more. So get to your local deli and taste 4 generations of family recipes. With Dietz & Watson on the table, you'll have everyone coming back for seconds and thirds. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing since 1939.
Remember when Trump defended neo-Nazis?
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Or downplayed the coronavirus?
It's going to disappear one day. It's like a miracle.
It's time to fire politicians who failed us and elect leaders who will fight systemic racism, have a plan to beat the coronavirus, and will address bias in our healthcare system. This election, remember whose side Trump is on, not yours. Request a ballot now. Make a plan to vote. Our lives depend on it. Paid for by the NAACP.
Jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Livelihood. The new initiative from WURD Radio to connect Philadelphians to resources to help take the next steps in their professional lives. WordWorks.com features career readiness tools, entrepreneurship resources, funding opportunities, and events to expand your livelihood. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
I'm Philadelphia City Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, and this message is for the sisters. We wear a lot of hats. We're mothers, aunties and daughters, teachers, community leaders, and CEOs. We rise to the occasion every day. We're good at it too. And now, more than ever, we need to do what we do. Show up and show out this election. To organize, to make those calls and get out the vote. To stand up for our families and our communities, just like you do every single day, every single time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are counting on us, and we know that we can count on them.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Welcome back. We're waiting on Becky Monroe. She is director of the Fighting Hate and Bias and Immigrant Rights Program at the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, also with the Leadership Conference Education Fund. So we're just waiting on her. We do have her, Becky Monroe, with the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, joining us now here on Reality Check. Becky, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back.
All right, excellent. All right, good to talk with you. Good morning. Good morning. So how, from what we're saying, we're about less than a week out from the election. There has been a lot of conversation and also people experiencing those tensions, like physically on site at those polls. How bad is this threat of organized white nationalist, white extremist groups at the polls, at the on-site polls? How bad is this threat?
I think, I think as a baseline, I think one of the most important things to note is that these white nationalists, they call themselves militias. I think one thing I want to note from the beginning is that that name could appear to confer some sort of legitimacy to them. They are illegitimate, that there is absolutely no legal protection for their white nationalist activity. So I want to put that out there to begin with. But secondly, I think there is no question, and I know that the listeners know this better than anyone, that white nationalists, white supremacists have been here for a long time, and they will continue to be here. And there's also no question that they are being emboldened by this president, who, is either calling them out, whether it's through his debate language or honestly any of his policies and speeches of recent days. But I think the main thing to point out, though, is that people are prepared across this country. There are local advocates. There are local government officials. There are poll workers who are trained to identify any issues like this and to report it and to address it. So I think the most important thing we want to convey is it is safe to vote. People should vote. This vote, we keep talking about, people are voting like their life depends on it, and I think in many ways it does. And so I think our main point is that the vast majority of people will be able to cast their vote. My experience working over the years on hate crimes is that a lot of these groups are white nationalists. They are often white men who are scared and who like to sort of pretend like they have more power than they do. So I think it is important to know that people have this ability to vote. But I think it's important we have to grapple as a nation with the fact that there are these armed white gangs that are growing around the country, and I think they need to be addressed. But one of the main points we want to make is with this election, people can and should vote. And a lot of this activity that they are purporting to do can be addressed by law enforcement in advance. And the final thing is that we're talking to law enforcement. My boss, Sunita Gupta, the head of the leadership conference, has been talking to the conference of mayors, to major city police chiefs, to others to sort of emphasize we want to de-escalate the situation. We should not have any armed people from the government or otherwise at polling places, and we can make this a safe system.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that too. Like, how do you balance that, right? Because on one hand, you want law enforcement, local, state, federal, to be able to respond to those types of incidents or when that intimidation has taken place, but you don't want to escalate the situation. First of all, people see what happens when police sometimes arrive at tense situations. I mean, we're dealing with that in Philadelphia right now. So, and we've been dealing with the whole summer of concerns about that. But you still need them there, particularly when in certain states where it's open carry, people have permits to, and so these white extremists, white nationalists, and thank you for making that clarification too, because I don't use the word militia. No, they're not militias. They're extremists. They're terrorists. But these people do have like permits to carry these types of high-powered guns. How do you strike that balance without the police arriving and having another armed presence at a polling site and not also being viewed as intimidators?
That's right. And I think that, and that's why, you're striking sort of at the heart of the issue here. And so part of what we have talked a lot to law enforcement about is to the extent that these armed white nationalist gangs are acting before elections, that they're, again, to emphasize, and we actually, if you go to whitesupremacykills.org, we have a lot of information about sort of the illegitimacy of these white militias and what law enforcement can do now in terms of any activities they're taking to sort of try and address it before, we keep calling it election day, before the end of voting. So to be clear, everyone is voting now, and which is fantastic. But I think there are things that can be done beforehand. Another key point we always make is that this is about de-escalation. So this is not about armed police showing up. As you know, there is a long history in this country of armed police showing up, for example, in districts where there are a lot of black voters to intimidate voters. So obviously that's not what we're looking for. And I think a lot of the major police organizations recognize that, understand that. And so there is a push to try and sort of both de-escalate before it happens, make sure that there's accountability for these white nationalist militias, so-called militias, before they sort of can come to a polling place. And then really talking about what tactics police can use to get to de-escalate, to make sure that people feel safe voting, can get to the polling place. But I think we have seen, some examples before Election Day, as you know, of some white supremacists trying to sort of intimidate voters. And but I think that what is also important to note is that the vast majority, we have not been seeing that. And I think it's important to highlight that, and that there does need to be this balance. And I think we have been doing everything we can with partners across the country to emphasize that a big piece of this is not having police go armed to polling sites, and that they don't want to do that, and they recognize that, and that there's a lot of things they can do beforehand. The other thing that's great is that so many, I'm sure you're seeing the numbers, the huge numbers of people who have already voted. So to the extent that there's sort of that day is not going to hold the same kind of resonance for some of these groups as it might have in the past, because so many people have already voted.
Yeah, no, so many people have. Which do you think that in a way, I guess in a strange way, right, Becky? Does that help? Does that intense early voting help to minimize or mitigate the impact or the intensity of these potential confrontations? You see where I'm getting? Just the election spread out over so many weeks and months instead of just one big day.
That's exactly. I really do think it does. I think it sort of dissipates that sort of, and it also just shows. I think in this time of so much pain and so much cause for concern, the fact that voting numbers look like this should be a real sign for hope. And the fact that people are not, to the extent that people thought the white nationalists thought they were going to intimidate people from voting, people have already got their votes in counted. So it's not working. So I think that if, one thing we should feel as much as I think, and one of the things we try to emphasize is we need to address this, and we're going to have to address this after Election Day. That's the other thing, too, we keep talking about. These are obviously systemic issues that need to be addressed long after Election Day, but people should feel confident going to vote, getting their vote counted. It's a shame that this had to happen, but poll workers across the country, so the people who, many people have sort of, as part of their civic duty, they help to work at the polls. They're all trained to identify this, to recognize it, and to figure out how to de-escalate situations so that people can get their vote counted. So I think, I think I do think, to your point, the fact that democracy is working and people are voting in spite and perhaps because of this white nationalist threat, to show them that that's not who this country is going to be.
Yeah, and looking at, and everyone, we're talking with Becky Monroe. We have her back. She's the director of the Fighting Hate and Bias and Immigrant Rights Program, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Go to civilrights.org for more information on what they're up to, what she's up to. On that last point that you were making just a few moments ago, Becky, we're going to have to address this situation right now. Obviously the focus is on the election. The focus is on winning the election, because the only way that we're going to be able to address aggressively this white nationalist, white terrorist threat is by winning the election, right? You're going to have to elect the folks who are closely aligned with those interests, who are closely aligned with the concerns about the spread or the proliferation of white nationalism or white terrorism, you need to get them elected first. And so that's that. Hence, we have that focus. But what's that look like for you? What's that that set of potential policies look like to start addressing, to start combating domestic terrorism, domestic white supremacist fueled terrorism? Have you started to kind of create that or build that in your mind what that response framework looks like?
Absolutely. And I think, to be clear, I think so many organizations across the country, and honestly, a lot of the Black Red protests that have been in the streets throughout the summer and around the country are helping to build what that framework looks like. So to be really concrete about it, I think there's a couple of things we start with. One is that we do have intelligence, even from this, this administration. I think the last time I talked to you, we talked about the fact that this administration was trying to hide its own intelligence, which demonstrated the threat of white nationalism and white supremacy. So we have the data, we have the intelligence, and then the next question is sort of, what do you do with it? How do you act on it? There's something called the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act, which is something that it's out of the House, of course. In the Senate, it's been stopped, but I think that's something that we're talking about pushing for after the election. And that is, what it critically does is it makes sure that the agencies that have the information that are supposed to be addressing white nationalism and white supremacy are coordinating effectively and have the resources to do so. It does not create a new domestic terrorism charge, and I think that is very important, because one of the things we have seen is that some people, I think perhaps well-intentioned, have said, we should have a new charge, but we have seen what those charges look like. Those charges look like, people going after Black activists, Black protesters, often after Muslims. And I think, so one of the things I really emphasize is sort of what we should do and shouldn't do. And what we should do is we have the tools, we have a piece of legislation that's already through the House that will help to make sure that we are focusing where the actual threats are. And those actual threats are white nationalists and white supremacists. It is not, that is not just me coming from a civil rights organization saying that. That is the intelligence saying that. So that piece of legislation will help that. I think making sure the Civil Rights Division has the resources it needs to both across the board, but including within its criminal section, to make sure that it's investigating and prosecuting hate crimes. And I think, we have a whole list of other sort of examples of ways in which increased training for law enforcement and prosecutors to make sure that hate crimes that are perpetrated by white nationalists and supremacists are not only investigated thoroughly, but are also prosecuted, but importantly, that the communities that are targeted have the resources that they need. And that's another piece that we have started talking, and we are very ready to talk to a new administration about how to make sure that the communities that are actually targeted for hate have the resources that they need. And sometimes that may not be a prosecution. It may need more resources in their community. And so I think that's the other piece that we want to sort of focus on as well.
Do you worry that, because, there's the conversation right now is that if we get a new administration, if Biden wins, obviously his top concern or his top priority would be the pandemic. How do you get the pandemic under control? How do you better manage it? How do you start getting people into the rhythm of following simple guidelines, simple instructions like, hey, wear your masks so we can not kill another couple of 100,000 people, right? But do you worry that that because of that priority on the pandemic, which is an essential priority on the pandemic, it'll sort of put to the back burner a bit the needed focus on white nationalism, white terrorism, domestic terrorism, and then the only time that will suddenly, or a new federal government, a new administration will suddenly put all sorts of energy into it is when, unfortunately, something really bad, something really destructive and tragic happens, and then like, oh my gosh, okay, let's now mobilize all resources, but by that time it might be too late.
The reason I have hope that that's not the case is that I think even if you look at the HEROES Act, which is one of the pieces of legislation that did not get through because of Republicans stopping it, to address to address COVID, to address the pandemic, it included a bill that we've been supporting called the Jabara Hire No Hate Act, which is created to help make sure law enforcement is accurately sort of documenting and investigating hate crimes. So I think part of the reason I have some hope that that's not the case is that people recognize that as a part of this pandemic, we have seen an increase in hate incidents and hate crimes. And so I think it's both, I think there was a lot, and I think there should be more attention as well to the people who are targeting Asian Americans connected to the pandemic. But that quickly spreads to targeting African Americans, targeting immigrants, targeting others. So I think people recognize that if we're really going to recover from this pandemic, that addressing white nationalism and white supremacy will be critical to do it just as a part of that recovery. We cannot, and this is not just because it's the right thing to do. It's actually the thing that will work. We cannot recover as a country when people are terrorized to leave their homes. People can't go back to work when they are fearful for their lives and when there's not that kind of accountability. So I do think, for that reason, I'm hopeful. I'm also hopeful because when Senator Harris has a record in the Senate of recognizing the harm of hate, and recognize not only is it devastating to individuals, communities, it's devastating economically, it's devastating in terms of sort of civic engagement. It's harmful all around, and so I think this is not only the right thing to do; it's the thing to do that will be necessary for our country to truly to get back on the road to recovery after these disastrous 4 years and through this pandemic.
Talking with Becky Monroe with the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Go to civilrights.org. Also at Becky L. Monroe on Twitter as well. She was joining us here again. We'll be checking in with her throughout and seeing how this threat continues, how we're addressing it. Becky, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it. I know you got a lot to do this the rest of this day, so I'm going to give the rest of your Wednesday back at you. But thanks again.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
I really appreciate it. Take care. Bye.
All right, take care. Thanks again, Becky. All right. All right. Let's close. That was weird, right? Let's close the. Let's go to break, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
I'm Philadelphia City Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, and this message is for the sisters. We wear a lot of hats. We're mothers, aunties and daughters, teachers, community leaders, and CEOs. We rise to the occasion every day. We're good at it too. And now, more than ever, we need to do what we do. Show up and show out this election. To organize, to make those calls and get out the vote. To stand up for our families and our communities, just like you do every single day, every single time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are counting on us, and we know that we can count on them.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you sick of trying to cut and style your own hair and the rest of your family? Well, McLean's Unisex Salon in Mount Airy is open for business. We've been a neighborhood institution for more than 50 years, with styles for men, women, and kids. We have new partitions and social distancing measures to keep everyone safe while keeping the welcoming feel you've come to expect from your neighborhood shop. Visit us online at mcleansunisex.com or call now to make an appointment, 215-844-9826.
Right now, the health and financial security of voters over 50 are on the line. That's why AARP Pennsylvania is fighting for your voice to be heard. AARP Pennsylvania wants to make sure that you know all of your voting options and that all Americans can vote safely, whether they choose to vote from home or in person. To learn more about your voting options, visit aarp.org/PA Votes. Paid for by AARP.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend, we created the 40-hour work week. We just wanted enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour work day, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head.
America needs a president who can handle the job. America needs Joe Biden. Make a plan to vote. Our lives depend on it.
Paid for by Ask Me People, which is responsible for the content of this ad. AskMePeople.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check here. We're now joined by Pennsylvania State Representative Joanna McClinton. Go to pahouse.com/McClinton. She's representing the 191st District, Legislative District for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's parts of Delaware and Philadelphia counties, parts of West Philly in particular. And so I know she's not just watching, but responding to the situation closely as it unfolds in West Philly in the aftermath, the wake of this tragic killing of Walter Wallace Jr. Representative, how are you doing? Good to talk with you.
Good to be here this morning, Charles. Good morning.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Excellent. So how are you responding? How's your office responding with our kind of like top constituent needs right now in the wake of this?
So constituents want answers, Charles. I mean, we have suffered countless times through seeing these incidents play out across the nation, and they have hit home. Although we had it not before Monday afternoon, seen such a horror unfold in our own neighborhood, they've hit home because we could all relate to the situations, whether Breonna Taylor, home asleep, going into the wrong apartment, getting killed, or even George Floyd, where we had to witness their horror. But with it happening right in our neighborhood, blocks away from my district office and from where I live, people want answers. So we had an important meeting last night demanding answers from the folks who are in positions of power, specifically our mayor, our police commissioner, and the district attorney.
So what's that response look like? You're hearing community concerns, obviously people in a high state of tension and anxiety. What could that response look like? And how collaborative will it be between local and state? I know it's a local matter because it's local Philadelphia police, but how can a state legislator like yourself or a state policymaker like yourself help in a situation like this?
So I intend for it to be very collaborative. My city council member and I, Jamie Gauthier, we've been working closely because the same way we worked on police reform in Harrisburg, her and her colleagues in council have been working on it locally. But with this happening in both of our districts, we've been on the ground. We've been with the families. We've been making sure that they have the concern, the comfort, the encouragement that they need in this horrible time. But more importantly, we want policy answers as well. We know something went very wrong. We know that, in my perspective, it was a murder. It was unnecessary. It should have never occurred. But what we have to do is make sure if the Philly police don't understand what a danger is and how to de-escalate, we've got to change the rules so that they can make sure it's mandated.
What does police reform look like in Philly, in your mind? Saying like you obviously been working on reforms in Harrisburg, but what does that police reform like? I'm hearing this anonymously from a Philadelphia police officer whom I happen to known for a long time. He was listening in, old friend, but he was saying that we as police officers I do believe we as police officers do need better training, as well as the government cut a lot of funding, and the training we used to get 10 years ago, he's saying all that's gone. We had outside training and in-house training, and the way it is in the department, they are trained once in the beginning, then thrown out in the streets where cops with only 1 or 2 to 3 years is training rookies. Afterwards, only training we get, unless you're in a special unit, is your yearly MPO certification, and that's sad and a bad part of the police department. What does that reform look like to you, Representative?
So first of all, it's something you can't legislate. It's cultural, okay? These same officers were on that block multiple times before this incident. They are on routinely surveillance in that block and in that community. They know this young man, and they know his friends. So it's cultural thing that we have to address. And I see incompetency as it relates to how to deal with people that perhaps you didn't grow up around or don't live wherever you might live out in the county somewhere. That's something we can't make a rule on, but of course we can do more training for diversity. We can do more training on how to realize everybody's humanity, but it's going to take an inside change first as we work to change the real external policies as well.
Yeah. Some people also reflect often, they feel like, okay, definitely you were talking about that sense that needed collaboration, and you're saying that collaboration is going to happen. Like you have close collaboration with City Councilwoman Jamie Gauthier, but there is a sense like there's still that distance. Sometimes that distance framed as or argued or described as like cognitive dissonance between like you, the Philly area legislators, and Philadelphia city legislators, city council. I mean, are you all on the same page as far as like how do we arrive at this point of like the Philadelphia Police Department being like significantly overhauled? I also wonder, I mean, are you all able to have conversations with the police commissioner, the new police commissioner, about this?
Absolutely, and they just started last night at Church of Christian Compassion, but they're going to continue on a smaller level, specifically with the young people who live in that neighborhood, because so many of them express themselves, and there are things that are happening with our police that are not new, like just being disrespectful. I mean, where is that in the policy? You don't need extra training to not be disrespectful towards people and have negative attitudes and be condescending when you talk to somebody and pull them over. I mean, there are things that we have to really not just get on the same page, but not let up. Like, we cannot in this moment, Charles, let up. It's only been 2 days, but guess what? You know, we can't let up. We need to be talking about this and seeing change this time next year, like real change, and continue to push until we see things, as you said, overhaul, because what's been happening, it just does not work. It doesn't protect any of us, and it's very sad.
Do we worry, because we've seen this kind of play out, particularly since I've seen this play out since the Starbucks incident, right? And it seems like Philadelphia police haven't learned, but do we worry about the Philadelphia police feeling like they're under so much pressure to change? They're being called out so much, and a lot of residents have wondered out loud, well, are police pulling back on sort of necessary functions while we're going through a homicide crisis in the city right now? So do we worry like, okay, we do need to press or pressure the Philadelphia Police Department, but do we worry that like the police union suddenly could jump in and quietly encourage members to say, okay, hey, well, they're going through a homicide crisis right now, well, maybe they don't need us. Maybe we'll just do the bare minimum as far as our response to this gun violence epidemic we're going through?
Well, that is something we just cannot accept. You know, we paid them their salaries the same way my neighbors pay myself and all of our colleagues our salaries. And if I was to just disappear for 2 years and then pop back up and say I'm on the ballot, people are going to have some questions and really be frustrated with the lack of service. If my office shut down or if we only open 1 hour a day, that would not be acceptable. So for the idea that officers are not policing and doing the bare minimum, it's just, I mean, it's not crazy sounding, and I feel like that might be occurring in Philadelphia, specifically with the election of D.A. Krasner a few years ago. However, we cannot allow that. We cannot say, well, it used to take, within 30 seconds for you to get here, and now it's taking 2 or 3 minutes. We have to look at those raw numbers and really hold them accountable and explain what the expectations are. It is a high-pressured profession. I would not ever say, oh, it's a minimal job. No, it's a serious professional job, and it is high pressure, and you're handling tense situations, and you can never predict what your shift and how much longer you have to stay afterwards will hold. But if you are not committed to public safety, if you are not committed to seeing everyone's humanity, then that's just not the role for you. You should do something else with your time.
Right. Real quick, before I let you go, Representative, I'm just going to pivot here real quick because I got this big election coming up on Tuesday. You feel like your party's chances of flipping the State House are pretty optimistic right now? It was listed, I did see the Pennsylvania House, in which you serve, being listed as one of those top 10 legislatures that could likely flip from Republican to Democrat. Are you all prepared for that?
Well, Charles, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm currently in Western Pennsylvania, and I just drove by a Trump sign. So guess what? I'm not taking anything for granted, but I'm out here working helping these candidates, making sure they have what they need for the next few days so that we can say we gave it 5,000%, because that's what's key. Even to get some of these police reforms done, we need the majority. God bless all these Republicans, but guess what? It's all tech, and, oh, Joanna, we're praying for you in your district. They never start to open up the door and say, let's fix this. Let's work together and make resolution. And without a protest staged on the floor of the House, we would not have had anything done this far this session. So we need to vote the president out. We need to vote the Republicans in Western Pennsylvania out. We need to make sure the ones in Delco and Bucks that have been holding on with the skin of their teeth also go, because they're not addressing our needs as an entire Commonwealth.
We've been talking with State Representative Joanna McClinton. Go to pahouse.com/McClinton. Be safe out there in Western PA, and we'll be in touch. Take care. Good luck to you.
Talk later. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. All right, let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, we're supposed to be heading into our citizen segment. We're supposed to be talking with Barbara Chandler Allen. She's founder and executive director of Fresh Artists, and also talking to art teachers Rachel Brewster and Susan Kelly. We're talking about the initiative featured in the recent Philadelphia Citizen, and talking about using art as a way to encourage voting. So she'll talk more about it, Barbara Allen, a Fresh Artist, coming on here on Reality Check next for our citizen segment. 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I'm Philadelphia City Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, and this message is for the sisters. We wear a lot of hats. We're mothers, aunties and daughters, teachers, community leaders, and CEOs. We rise to the occasion every day. We're good at it too. And now, more than ever, we need to do what we do. Show up and show out this election. To organize, to make those calls and get out the vote. To stand up for our families and our communities, just like you do every single day, every single time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are counting on us, and we know that we can count on them.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
We've all heard people say this election is the most important of our lifetime. Let's remember why that's true. Under the Trump presidency, racism has found a tragic new normal, emboldened by a president who has demonstrated disrespect and disregard for our communities while embracing and protecting white supremacists. While the coronavirus was taking our family members from us, Donald Trump deceived the nation by withholding information that could have saved lives. He protected himself instead of protecting us. Our economy is in shambles, our children's education jeopardized, and the Trump administration is in court right now trying to take away our health care. This has to end. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the leaders we need to chart a path toward opportunity, justice, and healing. From affordable health care to quality education and jobs, there's only one choice to move us forward. Vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Paid for by BlackPAC and Priorities USA Action, BlackPAC.com and PrioritiesUSAAction.org, which are responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. For testing hours and more information, call 1-833-533-3463.
Keeping you informed. As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get no-cost, barrier-free COVID-19 testing this week. Tuesday, October 27th from 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. at Northeast Baptist Church, 4744 Tackawanna Street. Thursday, October 29th from 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. at Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church East, 2800 West Cheltenham Avenue. And Saturday, October 31st from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. at Hartranft Playground Alliance, 800 West Cumberland Street. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Remember when Trump defended neo-Nazis?
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Or downplayed the coronavirus?
It's going to disappear one day. It's like a miracle.
It's time to fire politicians who failed us and elect leaders who will fight systemic racism, have a plan to beat the coronavirus, and will address bias in our healthcare system. This election, remember whose side Trump is on, not yours. Request a ballot now. Make a plan to vote. Our lives depend on it. Paid for by the NAACP.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. We're headed into our Citizen segment. We have our weekly Citizen segment here. We do this in conjunction with our partners, the Philadelphia Citizen. Go to philadelphiacitizen.org for some great content, some great perspectives, views on what's happening in your city, your great city of Philadelphia, your great and many times very distressed city of Philadelphia. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. But go to the philadelphiacitizen.org for more. Also, check out one of their latest features entitled Out of the Mouth of Babes. This was written by the Philadelphia Citizen's Rebecca Pepper Sinkler. Vote that John and fresh artists tap an army of kiddos to turn out the parent vote. And so we actually have the founder, the co-founder, founder and executive director of Fresh Artists, Philadelphia-based Fresh Artists, Barbara Chandler Allen. She's here to talk about that effort, along with two art teachers. Well, I don't know if we have Rachel yet, but we do have Susan Kelly. They want to talk about this new initiative where you're essentially dispatching young people, students, to get their parents, encourage their parents to vote through art. Barbara, I'm going to start with you. What is Fresh Artists, by the way, Barbara? How are you doing? Good morning.
Good morning, Charles. Thanks for having us on today. Fresh Artists is a nonprofit about 13 years old that was founded when we realized that the school district of Philadelphia was having massive cuts in arts funding. They had plenty of art teachers, but the art teachers had, at that point, nothing whatsoever to work with. We had... We partnered with the children in Philadelphia originally, and now it's national, and asked them if they would like to help bring art supplies into their classrooms by lending us a digital image of one of their pieces of art, and basically partnering with the child as full philanthropist. And the children did that, and through the children and their family, of course, as well, generosity and philanthropy, we've been able to donate more than $2.5 million in art supplies and innovative programs to the Philadelphia, Norristown, Camden, and then it went on beyond to throughout America. But I would say that probably easily 80% of what we do stays right here in our own community. It's a fabulous organization. Wow. And it's doing a lot of good, and it's empowering the youngsters, K through 12, to act as philanthropists. Wow. And that's why we did this project, because we basically believe that kids' art can go to work. It doesn't have to end up on the refrigerator, which is where most kids' art work ends up.
That's right.
We take that art metaphorically off the refrigerator and put it to work in the world to change the world. We give the kids a real opportunity through their artwork to bring much needed support to, in this case, our public schools.
Yeah, no, that's very important. I say that as a former Philadelphia public school student, and then a student at Fleischer Art Memorial a long time ago. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this. I almost went to art school. I'm pretty good at it. My wife's like, you need to paint and draw. Like, I'm still got it in me. And so that's just so important. I think we don't realize how important art can be. And then you have these geniuses, these artistic phenoms in our communities, right in our sight, and you can sometimes discover them through efforts like these, or like where I went when I was going to Little Fleischer Art School in South Philly on Saturdays. Sarah, want to go to Susan, want to go to you and talk about your experience as a Philadelphia art teacher, and why an effort, an initiative like this is so important to you. Talk about like just kind of the challenges of being an art teacher in a school district like that, and also dealing with students, young people, many of them dealing with challenges on their own, using art as a vehicle, as a channel, right? To kind of cope with some of those challenges. But why an initiative like this, especially to emphasize voting, is so important to you?
So I teach in Norristown Area School District, which is an inner city school district right outside of Philadelphia. And
Okay, you're at Norristown. Excuse me for that. Yeah, sorry for that.
And our students are very mixed culturally, and I think like having this real conversation with the students was so amazing. When we approached the kids with the concept of them getting the voice out to vote, it was so important to them because they all had their own reasons and their own backstories about why it's important to vote. But then they embraced the idea of the nonpartisan, like the idea that everyone has the right to vote and everyone needs to get out to vote. And they really just embraced that whole idea and created these amazing pieces of art that kind of tell their own story. So, you know, one person's get out to vote might be about, you know, the American flag and you know, just having the vote that John across the flag. And then another student's piece of art reflects the Black Lives Matter movement, where, you know, they have the Black Lives Matter fist in their design, and just really like individualizing their own design. I think, you know, giving these kids the ability to express themselves through their artwork is an amazing gift. And some kids, you know, that's their thing, that's their groove, that's their place where they need to be and where they find their comfort zone, and really give them the voice that they deserve to have.
Yeah, no, this is good. I'm not sure if we have, do we have, can't tell if we have Rachel Brewster. Oh, okay. Rachel, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, talk about that too, Rachel. You know, kind of the role that you play in this initiative, this partnership between Fresh Artists and Vote That John. How important it is to you, know, particularly with your art background. I want to get your perspective, making sure I get everyone's perspective on here before we talk about the particulars of how this is working.
So I think one of the biggest things, and I think Ms. Sue Kelly kind of hit on a lot of it, but our kids have voices, and a lot of times kids are not given the voice that they deserve, and they have such a different insight. They see so much of what we as adults experience, but they see it from a completely different view. And as much as we want them to think and be children, a lot of our kids aren't allowed to be kids, and they aren't allowed to just play, and they aren't allowed to think on a child's level. And so they do see higher level things, especially with the way our country is right now. They see a lot of things that I wish that they didn't have to see or hear. And so hear their voice about what their perspective is really important, I think, because I think we need to learn from that too. And I think we need to start to think about the way in which we are interacting with them and the way in which we are introducing different elements of life to them, because they can do a lot more, and they can they have a lot more understanding of what's going on than I think adults usually think that they do.
Yeah, no, this is great. We're talking here with Barbara Chandler Allen, founder, executive director of Fresh Artists, also talking to two art teachers, one from Norristown School District. And Rachel, are you Philadelphia School District art teacher?
No, I'm also Norristown Area School District.
You're Norristown area as well. Okay, got it. So excuse me for that, just a little gaffe on my part. Rachel Brewster, Susan Kelly, art teachers, playing very important roles as someone who used to be heavily immersed in that as well. Really appreciate this conversation. We're talking about a recent feature in the Philadelphia Citizen entitled Out of the Mouth of Babes, Vote That John and Fresh Artists Tap an Army of Kiddos to Turn Out the Present Vote. You can, for more information, right, you can go to freshartist.org. I know the deadline's already passed, Barbara, for the student design contest that you partnered with Vote That John on. But, well, I guess two questions here real quick, Barbara. Why Vote That John, right? I mean, it seemed like a natural fit. You were aware of what they were doing. And then how's this turned out? Because you already had various images, artwork submitted. The deadline was back on October 7th. But what's that been looking like? What was the participation like from these students with some of the artwork that you saw? It seemed like the students, based on some of what I've seen, they're very aware of what's going on. They're very aware of how the electoral process, at least the very basics, works. You know, just through, this seems to be very sophisticated imagery about the voting process, which is something I'm really encouraged by and feel real positive about. But talk a bit about that.
We've been part of Vote That John since Lorraine Carey started it at Penn. Several years ago, we were part of when it was the interim elections. our kids did some artwork, and we're partnering. We partner with them all the time, with Safe Kids Story. At this point, they were basically contacting through college kids going out into the high schools to register young people to vote in all these elections. And that really wasn't our thing. We were more printers for them. We did a lot of work printing for them, and kids art in videos and some animation, things like that. When this thing happened and it really became a reality in September, I started to think about it, and we had not done much because we can't. There aren't kids to register because there aren't schools, and we can't go marching around out in the street corners. We're a totally different kind of organization, and I was just jonesing around. What can we do? What can we do? I'm feeling the need to do something nonpartisan. I have the great ability to contact thousands of art teachers all across the country because we give grants to them. We're a granting organization of free art supplies. So all of a sudden I thought, why don't we create why don't we create a contest where kids do a logo and they use that logo, as Becky Sinkler said so appropriately, as a one-slide slideshow. And to show their parents and begin to initiate a conversation with their family, their community, their neighbors about the importance of voting and how precious it is. Totally non-partisan. In fact, we would kick out anybody that submitted anything that was any party or any person. It was about the concept of democracy. And we threw it together very quickly. And we put it out there across the country, and lo and behold, more than 400 entries were submitted. 37 schools across the country, from as far away as Alaska, Oklahoma, Wichita, Santa Fe. The most incredible one was a school right on the border, literally on the border, across from Ciudad Juarez in Mexico, and it was a town, tiny little town of 9,000 people, and they're right in the middle of, all of the troubles, all of the camps, and the wall and all that stuff that's going on. And I think 40 kids in that school, submitted something. It was one of the most heartwarming, exciting things I've ever seen. Most of the kids had nothing to work with at home. They were working with a pencil and whatever paper they had. Obviously all pretty much low-income schools from around the country. And these children poured their hearts out in. You will get to see probably today or tomorrow. We have there's a social media with the 45 winners, first, second, third, and honorable mention. But then we decided everybody's art has to be out there. And right now, our staff is putting together a slideshow with a remarkable a track from the Philadelphia Orchestra of Dr. J reading from Lincoln. It's a concert that was done in 1991 in Philadelphia by the Philadelphia Orchestra of Aaron Copland's work, Lincoln Portrait, and words of Lincoln read by Dr. J over the children's artwork will give you goosebumps that will have mountainous goosebumps. We hope.
I can't wait to see that. Yeah, I can't.
Well, it's going to be remarkable, and the kids were remarkable. The teachers were fabulous to work with. They grabbed a hold of it, and it was one of the most exciting last-minute things we've ever done.
Let me ask, Susan. You were talking about in this piece in the Philadelphia Citizen how the seventh graders that you were working with were very much more aware, I'm quoting you here in the Philadelphia Citizen, very much more aware than we give them credit for on the importance of voting. What was that process like too? And they were also, the kids understood, hey, we got to keep this nonpartisan. Obviously there was some, according to this piece, there were some parents who may have disagreed with that. They wanted their children to have the right to express themselves politically, but talk about that process. Like, I guess at certain points, even though it's just about voting, it's just about civic participation, at certain points it got tense.
I think we started the lesson with the kids by introducing them to the history of voting and really showing them that many groups of American citizens have only earned the right to vote in the last 100 years. And it really, I think, struck them. I don't think that they comprehended how recently people were given that right and the ability to vote. And I think that to them, it spoke to them in the idea that we have to get out and vote. If we fought so hard to have those rights, those human rights that are ours, then we have to make sure that we exercise those rights. And I think, like, intrinsically, like, it just grabbed the kids' attention and really made them want to get that message out to every person that they could get to listen to what they had to say. And I think the idea of that everybody has the right as a human right, and that they need to use and exercise that right that was so hard fought and won, that I think that was kind of the stance that all the kids took. And like the nonpartisan issue for them wasn't an issue, because they were like, no, it's about the right to vote. It's not about who you vote for.
Got it. Yeah. If it were up to me, I'm hoping that the voting age gets lowered one more time to 16. That's just me. That's something I've been working on kind of quietly, and hopefully after this election, be able to put a little bit more time and attention into it. Rachel, bringing you in here, you talked about how you had Fresh Artists, Vote That John, bring in professional graphic designers to teach the children about how to create these logos, how to try to be as professional, as intentional as they could be in designing these. Talk about that experience, because that was one thing that impressed you, that you commented on in this article in the Philadelphia Citizen.
Working with Fresh Artists has been a treat. I've been working with them for, I think, 8 years now, and it was kind of a random meeting, but Barbara has this ability to talk people into doing things for her, and me included, to be honest. She's a seller.
I get that feeling, right?
So she has gotten these amazing graphic designers that are examples, and it's a diverse group of people that are just really awesome people, and they show the kids in these videos how to do what they do. They show them the insides of their sketchbook. They talk about the process that they go through. And the kids get to see, like, it doesn't come out perfect right away. Like, it's not that end result. And I think there's something that happens to kids at the end of elementary school, beginning of middle school, that they start to think that what they create has to be something, and they're not sure it's going to be there. So a lot of kids just don't want to create anything, because what if it's not what it's supposed to be? And that's, we have to, like, ingrain, like, for the 4 years we have them in middle school, we have to, like, almost, like, beat that idea out of them and make sure that they understand, like, you have the ability to do whatever you want to, and what you see and how you see the world is completely different than somebody else. So these graphic designers showing them from the beginning to the end how they went through the process was so valuable for them. And to see, just, again, we become like their parents, right? So what we say doesn't always mean everything. And so they don't always believe, like, when we say that their work's good, or that we say whatever, like, they don't always believe what we're saying. So to see what graphic designers are doing and saying about that process is really, really important.
Yeah, no, it just so much is. Barbara, go ahead. What's next for you after this? But go ahead. You were about to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Rachel was saying, and that is that this is part of a program that we created about 6 or 7 years ago called Cool Jobs. We realized, working with the schools all over the country, that many kids don't know anybody, adult people, very few that really love their jobs. It's mostly tedious and sometimes worse. And what we wanted to do is to stem the dropout rate, which is very high in many urban districts, even rural districts throughout the country. And if kids knew that there were wonderful jobs in the creative economy, everybody tells you don't be an artist, they starve. Well, they don't. There's never been a time in the history of the world where there were more opportunities for creative people to earn a living, and a good living. So we have pulled together all of these people who are graphic designers, art therapists, fine art conservators, designers of sneakers, and all sorts of things, and we introduce them to the kids. This was just another opportunity. We have a big expo every year when it's not the world is not disease-ridden. bringing 600 kids in 3 days and introducing them in middle school to people that have successful careers in the creative economy. We believe that most kids don't see that part of America.
Yeah.
And therefore they drop out because they don't see anything in high school that they want to study. And there are a whole bunch of people like you, Charles, me, Susan, Rachel, and 400 kids that answered the call of making a logo for voting, that we can approach, and we can encourage those kids to follow what they love and what they really want to do, to find a job to love for life. So this was just another way that we can weasel in the message,
right,
about basically careers in the creative economy, but you got to stay in school. Pick the best fit high school. Avail yourself. Summer, after school, weekend programs. That's really what we're on. That's part of what Fresh Artists does now, is career exploration that is in a niche of creativity, jobs and creativity. We're not showing them auditors' jobs. No offense to auditors, but
right. That's all right.
I'm going to get deluged with calls from the insurance.
Oh, go ahead. I think it was Rachel. You were.
That was the coolest thing, is we had kids that were coming to me, and I've had kids that have done subsequent extra projects because they like what they were doing so much, and they've shared that they want to look into that for the future. So that's like where just that like little peep into this new world that they didn't really understand was a part of their like possible destiny was a cool part of that.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So we're, Rachel, I'm going to give you the last word because we actually had to go to break. That was Rachel Brewster, Norristown School District. Also, Susan Kelly, her colleague, both art teachers in Norristown School District. And we've been talking with Barbara Chandler Allen as well, founder, executive director of Fresh Artists. For more information on Fresh Artists, want to go to freshartists.org, freshartists.org for more information there. And to get involved, not just in terms of this art contest, which just passed the deadline for that, but sounds like some great, interesting programs. Got to follow up with you, Barbara, that you're putting out there. Rachel and also Susan, great work. Just really appreciate, my hat goes off to you, because I know being an art teacher, it's very rewarding, but it's very challenging as well. So very, very demanding work. So thanks for that. Thank you all for joining us too by Skype. This is the first time we did it like multiple people on Skype. So I've typically had it one-on-one, but just having multiple 3 people at a time. So this was wonderful. So we were able to pull it off. Thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate this work. Thanks for what you're doing. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks again. Be safe out there. Have a great one. All right. Let's take a break. And when we come back on the other side, speaking of Skype, we'll have election security advocate Jennifer Cohn is going to be joining us next, talking about what's happening, continuing to talk about this election and the vote. She's going to talk to us about what's happening on the election security front, as she does every week around this time here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I'm Philadelphia City Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, and this message is for the sisters. We wear a lot of hats. We're mothers, aunties and daughters, teachers, community leaders, and CEOs. We rise to the occasion every day. We're good at it too. And now, more than ever, we need to do what we do. Show up and show out this election. To organize, to make those calls and get out the vote. To stand up for our families and our communities, just like you do every single day, every single time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are counting on us, and we know that we can count on them.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Everyone has a different journey to their vote, but we all take the same steps. If you want to vote, register by October 19th. If you want to vote by mail, apply now and mail your ballot back as early as possible, before November 3rd. Or bring it to a satellite election office. If you want to vote in person, go to your polling location on November 3rd. However you want to vote, we'll help you find the way. Visit PhiladelphiaVotes.com.
New Voices for Reproductive Justice is mobilizing Black women in Philly and our families to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. You can mail or drop off your ballot or vote early in person at 20 locations in Philadelphia and Delaware County right now. For more information, visit newvoicesrj.org/2020elections. That's newvoicesrj.org/2020elections.
WURD Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the upcoming election.
This is Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check on WURD. More than 2/3 of all poll workers are 61 years of age or older. That's created a serious poll worker shortage as older poll workers are understandably nervous about health risks during pandemic. If you or someone you know under the age of 40 is looking for part-time work and is interested in contributing to their community, sign up to be a poll worker today. In Pennsylvania, go to votespa.com, click on Be a Poll Worker, and complete an application. Keep following us at onWURD on Twitter, facebook.com/forward, and hashtag Word on Politics for constant updates on election 2020. And remember, vote early.
Stay informed and vote. For more from Charles Ellison, tune in Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or visit wordradio.com.
What you get for your vote is important. For decades, Democrats like Joe Biden have taken our votes for granted. They have promised us a better future and never delivered. What did our votes for Biden get us? He wrote the 1994 crime bill that put millions of black men in prison for nonviolent crimes and a sluggish economy that left our communities behind. What does a vote for President Trump and his Platinum Plan get you? A contract with Black America that prioritizes black economic empowerment, 3 million new jobs for the black community, 500,000 new black-owned businesses, an increase in access to capital in black communities by almost $500 billion, better and cheaper health care, more education opportunities, and continued historic improvements to our criminal justice system. A vote for Biden gets you the same failed policies we've seen for decades. But with President Trump, the best is yet to come.
I'm Donald Trump, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. We're waiting on election security advocate Jennifer Cohn, at Jenny Cohn, COHN1. We always talk about election security issues, what's happening on that front. You got voter suppression, you got election security. It's all under election security, really, under that umbrella. So it's always good to have Jenny on. I know Jenny is super busy as we are less than a week away from D-Day, from the big November 3rd election day. We've been pretty much going through, this is like the longest election ever, right? This has just been a very long and brutal, arduous election cycle. But so it's been a real treat to get someone as knowledgeable about what's happening with election security and what's happening with things such as voting machines, ballots, et cetera, that whole process. To have someone on like that. So I know she's mad busy because normally she'll be on. She normally joins us through Skype, and we normally get her a little bit early just to gear up for that. So in the meantime, let's just open up the phone lines until we get her. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it's 866-361-0900. 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. Here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. Number of races. We're looking at the Senate. The Democrats need to capture 4 seats in the Senate, or recapture 4 seats in the Senate in order for them to get the majority. At least 3, net 3. If they want to capture, if they want to tie the Senate, and then if Biden, Harris win the White House, then Kamala Harris becomes the vice president, and she would be the tiebreaker in the Senate if it were down to a 50-50 split between Republicans and Democrats. We've been watching that Senate map very closely. States to watch right now are Michigan, Maine, South Carolina, North Carolina, Montana, and Arizona. So some interesting polling data coming out of those states for the Senate. Jennifer, how are you doing?
I'm
All right, we got
fine.
you.
How are you doing?
All right, good, good. We were just waiting on you. So
Yeah, I
appreciate
got it
you.
to work. I don't know what was going on there.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Good to have you. Jennifer Cohn is election security advocate. You can catch her at Jenny Cohn, at Jenny COHN1 on social media, on Twitter. She's highly engaged. There's just some very informative and instructive, useful threads there on her Twitter account. So I highly recommend, if you are on Twitter, you want to follow at Jenny Cohn. And she joins us here each week on Reality Check. So last week, Jenny, you did see, that announcement from the intelligence, federal law enforcement community about Russia, China, and Iran. And your argument is, and you've argued this for quite a long time, Russia, China, Iran, their election manipulation aims are not the same. We need to be clear about that. We need to be clear about who the key culprit is here as far as the manipulation of the 2020 election. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I was just posting that. It seems like all my computers. Anyway, yeah, there was a report in August from Speaker Pelosi and Chairman Adam Schiff warning that the aims, this is the quote, the aims and actions of Russia, China, and Iran are not the same. Only one country, Russia, is actively undertaking a range of measures to undermine the presidential election and to secure the outcome that the Kremlin sees as best serving its interest. And they wrote this in the wake of the cancellation of the in-person briefings about Russian interference, which Senator Blumenthal had said was horrifying and appalling and shocking and a break-the-glass moment. What Trump appears to be doing is to deflect in a number of ways from Russian interference by trying to create a false equivalence with whatever Iran is doing and China may be doing, which apparently is at a much lesser scale. So this big announcement that that Ratcliffe, I forgot his first name, sorry, but Director of National Intelligence, Ratcliffe made had to do with both Iran, he was sort of both sidesing, both Iran and Russia have obtained voter registration information, which unfortunately is kind of like the lowest on the totem pole as far as actual hacking, because a lot of that information is public anyway. Yeah. And Russia is apparently doing a whole lot more than that, and yet they were trying to create this false equivalence to do and the announcement went out of its way to say that this was somehow to harm Trump, and that Iran was also sending some emails that were supposedly damaging to Trump, even though I think he was referring to the fake Proud Boys emails, and it is not clear that those would necessarily be harmful to Trump, since he actually likes the Proud Boys.
Since he actually likes the Proud Boys, not harmful to Trump. Real quick, what do you know about that? What do we know about that as far as like that? Because I remember that before that announcement, there was some worry, especially in the state of Florida. Florida voters, it was people across the country, but it was interesting. It seemed like it was a high rate of Florida voters who were receiving these really sinister looking emails. They were fake emails from the Proud Boys saying, hey, we know who you are, and if you don't vote for Trump, we'll come after you. And could that have been, was that the announcement?
I think that's what they were referring to, but I don't know.
That's what they were referring to. So, are we kind of, sort of thinking that announcement was kind of timed in a way to take the heat off the Proud Boys? Maybe the Proud Boys did actually send that.
I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. And that's the problem when you have a president who lies all the time. And, and aspects of our system that are so not transparent. So I think really misuse of the classification process to hide crimes. This is what you get, is that we have to speculate.
Right. And I don't want to speculate any further because I don't want to kind of mislead folks on that. How are we feeling right now? What sort of activity are we seeing, Jenny, as far as especially the Russians, the Russians and their involvement in infiltrating? You've got concerns over, and you've had concerns for a while now about how they're able to not just manipulate social media, because we keep having that social media conversation, which I do want to get into that with you in a few moments. But we don't talk enough about social media is one thing, but let's talk about these voting machines and the ability to hack these voting machines. And you can have bad actors, bad geopolitical actors like the Russians, literally change numbers. That's within the realm of possibility. Are we seeing signs of that, or still worried about that?
Yes, there was a piece written by Nicole Perlroth for the New York Times earlier this week, which says, and here's her quote, U.S. administration officials have been watching Russia's FSB, that's their security service, penetrate state and local systems in recent weeks and believe they have pieced together Russia's plans for election interference. It is far worse than Iran. So this was right after the Ratcliffe announcement, and so, and then it goes on. It concluded with a very ominous statement that I think was meant to be reassuring, but it didn't really come off that way to many people, which is that Russia's ability to change actual vote tallies is limited. And that really struck a lot of people out of the whole article. Like, what? Because that's the first sort of, one of the only admissions that we've received from officials via the media that Russia actually could change vote tallies. And the answer, honestly, is, I mean, probably, of course they could, because as I've been warning and others have been warning, we actually have quite a bit of connectivity with our election equipment right now, especially in the precincts. And with things like cellular modems that election officials just refuse to remove. They don't need to use them to transmit their unofficial results. But by not removing them, they're endangering not just unofficial results, but the whole system, including official results. Because once somebody gets inside a system, you know, once a hacker gets inside, they can plant malware and hang out there.
Right.
So, yeah, so that was a pretty big admission, more than we got in 2016 when, according to David Scheimer's book, Rigged, Russia also was in a position to change vote tallies in some places. I do want to emphasize that perhaps the greater risk as far as vote tallies, but certainly equal, is domestic actors and corrupt insiders. It doesn't have to be Russia. Russia could also fund hackers in the United States. You know, it's a great risk when you're talking about rigging a presidential election.
Right.
That sort of thing. People want to expect a lot of money for that.
Yeah,
I would imagine. Speculating.
Just still speculation, but you know, just have to be prepared for anything in an election like this. I mean, because right now, I mean, there's some very like rosy conventional wisdom surrounding the chances of Joe Biden. You know, when we look at that polling data, but there's just all sorts of like you know, surreptitious players all over the place trying to disrupt, manipulate, and kind of change this election. I do want to get into social media a bit, Jenny, because we've been seeing a lot of announcements from platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and others basically saying, hey, we're going to put emergency election response protocols in place to, you know, sort of be prepared for whatever the announcements might be or outcomes. I think Facebook, however, already let slip through some Trump ad about him being like it was some pre-taped and very, you know, very sort of presumptuous kind of victory ad, you know, basically saying, hey, I've already won. And so it just seems like a dollar short day late in terms of these social media companies suddenly acting like they're so active.
Right. I'd take anything that Facebook does with a grain of salt. I hope they do take steps, but it is quite late in the game. And Twitter hasn't been ideal either. It should have actually banned Trump. I confused the two. Freudian slip. It should have banned Trump's account probably a long time ago, or at least, you know, been more proactive about putting warnings on his tweets and things. We're definitely, when we look at the threats to our election, I think it's a mistake a lot of people make, not you or I, but to look at things sort of in isolation. It's really it's a whole gestalt, and there is absolutely a narrative warfare component to this. If you wanted to flip vote tallies, for example, you would need to create a narrative to make it appear plausible that your candidate might win. And so certain things that I look out for and that are concerning me are polls that seem rather obviously cooked for Trump. So Rasmussen, for some reason, seems to have linked arms with a group called Liberty Nation, which you can look them up. They're extremely conservative. They describe themselves as extremely conservative, far, you know, not just conservative, sort of radically conservative. And they put up some, you know, BS poll showing that black voters had a 46% approval of Trump after the debate. And I find that exceedingly hard to believe. But when I see those types of polls being floated out there, it worries me that they have not given up on this. They do not. They're spinning a narrative to make it appear plausible, Trump win plausible,
Yeah.
even if it isn't plausible, and that's
Right.
concerning. Like, why are they doing that? And
Right.
yeah,
Right, right. Why they're doing that, and Rasmussen's always been a Republican-leaning polling operation. So no, not surprised to be aligned with it. But the fact that we're kind of just like we're in the final stretch.
46% though. I mean,
And that's just it's like but that's 46% of Black Republicans maybe. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and maybe that's the only kind, which is a very small slice of the overall African American electorate and just the electorate overall. But maybe that's what that is. Who's responding to Rasmussen like that. And real quick, Jenny, Amy Coney Barrett now in the Supreme Court, and is there a particular case or a set of cases that you're watching that you might be worried about that's related to the election, that's related to election security, that might snake its way to the Supreme Court, that's already kind of being considered, that Barrett could be a decisive vote in? Are you have any concern there?
So I honestly have not been following that as carefully, but I did note that there was sort of that Kavanaugh explicitly endorsed some aspect of the Bush v. Gore decision, which is ominous because that was the one that stopped the recount to help the Republicans, in 2000. And what I really do think is happening is that, all right, so I don't normally do the predictions, but here's a prediction.
Yeah.
I think that Trump is pretty clearly trying to steer everyone's attention away from potential hacking that may help him make his numbers look better. And it may not be enough to actually win him the election. So then his part two is to concurrently come up with really far-fetched, which he is doing in real time, really far-fetched, implausible theories involving masses of individual voters risking imprisonment to try to steal the election from him, and that China and Iran are joining these masses of individual voters by ordering up and filling out by hand, millions of mail ballots and returning them, and that we don't have to worry about hacking, by a few people who could just do a centralized computer and affect a whole county. No, they want to do it all by hand. So he's using these so that he has a way, I think, obviously, to drag out the election if he doesn't have enough just to win based on the electronic part. And I think his goals would be, one, to maintain power, or two, to find a way to negotiate a deal where he leaves office in exchange for some kind of immunity. And that, that would be another scenario where we're stuck in litigation for a few months, and then I don't think that's a great outcome. It's maybe not the worst outcome, but it wouldn't really root out the rot that needs to be rooted out.
Yeah, it wouldn't, because people are looking for that accountability.
Yes.
Especially not so much blood, but people are just wondering, you got to, if Biden wins, he's going to have to work double time to restore confidence in government. Part of that will be, hey, listen, we got to stamp out the corruption, and we have to hold these people, we have to hold Trump and hold his acolytes, everyone accountable. Got to hold them. And if that accountability doesn't happen, people are that's going to be even worse. Like, hey, we did all this, finally got you elected, expecting this accountability to take place, and it hasn't. And so, that's not a desirable outcome. But anyway, Jenny Cohn, election security advocate, go to @JennyCohn, COH11, on social media, on Twitter, to watch and to just engage her there, look at more of her insights and some of the work that she's doing protecting our vote here on election security. Foremost national election security advocate. So it's good to have her on here every week on Reality Check. Jenny, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great talking with you as always.
Always. All right. We'll talk to you next week, day after.
Sounds good.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Let's take a break, and we'll come back on the other side. Phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, after this quick break.
This year has been unprecedented. From the COVID pandemic to nationwide protests addressing systemic racism and calling for criminal justice reform. For weeks, we've been reminding you to make your voice heard in this election, and now is the time to act. Voting is how we empower our communities, and this election day, we can make things happen for us instead of letting things happen to us. So use your power and make your plan to vote today. If you signed up to vote by mail, don't wait. Complete your ballot, put it in the small envelope and seal it. Then put it in a larger envelope and seal that too. Sign and date it. Then drop off your ballot at your county election office today. If you have not signed up to vote by mail, go to the polls on Tuesday, November 3rd. Make sure to confirm your polling location. And don't forget to wear a mask. Polling places are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. To find your county election office or polling location, visit votespa.com. Take your power to the polls and vote. Paid for by Power Interfaith.
WURD Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the up-and-coming election. Still concerned about COVID-19 and voting in person? Pennsylvania has you covered with mail-in ballots. Simply submit a completed ballot by mail. So long as you request that mail-in ballot between now and October 27th, go to votespa.com and apply for your mail-in ballot today. When your ballot arrives, read it carefully and follow the instructions to complete it and return it. You can also track and confirm that your County Board of Elections has received the mail-in ballot by going to votespa.com. For more information on how to vote in Pennsylvania, visit states.aarp.org/Pennsylvania. Vote early. WURD Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the up-and-coming election. Stay informed and vote. For more from Charles Ellison, tune in Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or visit wordradio.com.
Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to WURD Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Keep your dial locked to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media.
Remember when Trump defended neo-Nazis?
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Or downplayed the coronavirus?
It's going to disappear one day. It's like a miracle.
It's time to fire politicians who failed us and elect leaders who will fight systemic racism, have a plan to beat the coronavirus, and will address bias in our healthcare system. This election, remember whose side Trump is on, not yours. Request a ballot now. Make a plan to vote. Our lives depend on it. Paid for by the NAACP.
I'm Philadelphia City Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, and this message is for the sisters. We wear a lot of hats. We're mothers, aunties and daughters, teachers, community leaders, and CEOs. We rise to the occasion every day. We're good at it too. And now, more than ever, we need to do what we do. Show up and show out this election. To organize, to make those calls and get out the vote. To stand up for our families and our communities, just like you do every single day, every single time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are counting on us, and we know that we can count on them.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, phone lines open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me go to Maurice out of Southwest calling in for Reality Check. Maurice, what's good?
Charles, what a wild few days. Look, this is how I break it down. I've been listening to the people, and I wasn't going to call in because I wanted to hear their opinion, but I got to say something. We get our emotions and we get the drama into it. It's a simple. I break it down to the simplest thing. If you go get a hamburger and the hamburger is raw, you complain to the manager, and if the manager isn't doing what you want to do, you call corporate. Am I right?
Right.
So that's the same thing with this city. When the cops don't do what they're supposed to do, you go to the manager, who is the commissioner. And then if the commissioner is not doing what you want, you go to corporate, who is the mayor. It's real simple. The mayor is not doing what he's supposed to do. He hired the commissioner. Remember that. We did not elect her. He hired her. So she's his employee.
Right.
We got to get these facts right. Now, by her opening her mouth, which I would advise her not to say that, but she went and told us a lot of truths we didn't know about. Like, they don't have the proper supplies to handle the black community. Oh, you mean, well, anytime there's an incident, remember, people forget the simple things that we always forget. Public servants. That's who the police are. They work for us. We don't work for them. And when they come to with the climate of the nation right now, they know they're supposed to have stun shields, because we had that when I worked at the prison at Gradyford. We had stun shields, we had stun batons, we had chemical mace. We had to do. Look, if I would have been on scene and I was a younger guy, if I seen that guy on the street with a knife, I would have just walked up with a bucket of water and threw it on him, and that would have stunned him enough where I could hit him in the head with the bucket. I don't know why they emptied their. I mean, they actually emptied their guns into the man. And how you gonna kill somebody in front of their family in a neighborhood you're not wanted in? How do you do that? How you have the nerve to do that? That's the things we're not breaking it out to. Some white men come on a black block and murder somebody, and we stand around with our mouths open. All we can do is take pictures. When are we gonna, instead of running around in the neighborhoods destroying our neighbors, and them stores may not never come back because this is the second time. We're supposed to be down City Hall where they can make changes. The store owners that you destroy can't make no changes. City Hall makes the changes. So people, please get it together and stop acting foolish. That's all I want to say.
Some very good points, Maurice. I can't disagree with you. Very good points. We're not questioning the mayor enough. You're absolutely right. I mean, you hired this qualified, capable police commissioner to do the work that she needs to do. But at the end of the day, he's the boss. It is his watch. It is his police department. It is his police commissioner whom he hired. She reports to him. Not hearing a whole lot from the mayor, and not hearing a whole lot as far as, mayor, because this was your police department. These were your police officers before Daniel Outlaw was hired. So, this is your kind of, this is the manifestation of whatever you as Philadelphia mayor imagine to be in regards to policing in Philadelphia. So, I mean, I know he got his second term, folks. I understand this is his last and second term, but come on. Like, Maurice makes a spot-on assessment. I appreciate that. Thanks, Maurice. Real quick, Gary out of Southwest Philly, I'll give you like a minute, under 2 minutes, real quick before we go to break.
All right,
Gary?
All right, thanks, Charles. Maurice was right on point. I wanted to ask the question, who does the police department answer to?
Yeah.
Technically, who are they supposed to answer to?
Yeah, you're supposed to answer to the mayor.
Okay. So when we go from there, that shooting, every time I see that video, it bothers me, because police officers, they know how to stand down if it's a person of a different color other than us.
Yeah.
It's not about training. Let's be for real. When they come into the black community, and yes, we have some negative elements, but the overwhelming majority of our people are hardworking, respectful individuals. However, we have a police department, and it goes all the way back in history, who feels they can do anything and everything they want to do to black people, and it's okay. I'll bet you any amount of money, if that gentleman was white, they would have stood down and used whatever other techniques to apprehend him. The fact that they shot this brother that many times tells you how much they hate us as a people. And I don't know why we keep sugarcoating it, because if we go back to the history of police, they were slave patrols. Okay? Let's be for real. And I'm so upset that our elected officials, and especially the ones that look like us, they are not outraged like they should be.
Right.
And yes, like Maurice said, we need to be down at City Hall, okay? But the point is, though, Charles, we pay their salaries. And they come in our community and murder us. I'm outraged, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Gary, thanks so much. You're going to get the last word because we actually had to go to break and head into the source with the Black Women's Leadership Council. That's coming up next. Thanks so much, everyone, for calling in and sharing your thoughts and your perspective and your stories as well. We really appreciate that. We'll be heading into City Council Live tomorrow, so let's see what the tenor of conversation is like in City Council chambers. It'll be virtual again, of course, because we're in the midst of a pandemic. But City Council Live will be starting up live Thursday, 10 a.m. I'm Charles Ellison. Go to @EllisonReport on Twitter.com, #RealityCheck, #WordOnPolitics. Continue to look at that, and also our companion magazine for this program, The B Note, THEBE Note, NOTE.com. So the bnote.com for more there. I want to thank Brianna Brown as well on the Board of Steel. All right, let's head into the source of the Black Women's Leadership Council. Philly and beyond wants you to stay sharp, stay smart, but more importantly, yes, y'all need to stay safe out there. Keep each other safe, please. All right, let's go to the source with the Black Women's Leadership Council. Coming up next here on WURD.